Hello and welcome to My Mom's Basement, presented by 3Chi and Barstool Sports and the Spider-Man No Way Home edition of My Mom's Basement. It feels good to say that. We finally made it. We're here. I saw the movie. There was a brief moment in time, like a 12-hour span, where I thought, am I not going to see this movie? I texted Clem. I said, you might have to record My Mom's Basement with Jeff D. Lowe or something.
Yeah, you threw that one out. It's like, hey, this movie we've been talking about for what seems like forever now. You're gonna have to just record it with Jeff for the first time. And I go, Robbie, I love Jeff. He's a diehard, but people are gonna still need the Basement Boys getting their thoughts in and the weird kind of nonsense we ramble about. We're gonna have to get this out ourselves at some point. And you were laid with quite a dilemma, young Robert.
Quite a dilemma. We talked about it a little bit on our Hawkeye recap last week. If you don't listen to that, if you don't listen to Hawkeye, if you don't watch Hawkeye, you should be watching that. But we talked about me testing positive for COVID the night before No Way Home premieres. I have my tickets. They were so hard to get when they went on sale. Everyone talking about the ticket sales, whatever. I get them through Jeff D. Lowe. I'm so excited to see it. And the day after Rough and Rowdy, December 11th, I'll say I felt like I had a cold. I was like, kind of runny nose, woke up feeling groggy. It's like, this is weird cold. Obviously, in these COVID times, you think immediately, should I get tested for COVID? So I thought that. Went and got tested on Monday. It was negative. So I was like, oh, thank God I didn't have to miss Spider-Man. I think I actually said that to multiple people. Like, my worst fear was having to miss Spider-Man opening weekend. And then I kept feeling pretty much the same way, kind of like I had a cold, little sniffles. And I just took a test for shits and giggles on Wednesday night, just because I had a bunch of at-home tests lying around. I said, let me learn how to use one of these before the holidays. Wound up coming up positive. Took another one because I was in shock. I was in disbelief, and that was positive as well. So I was like, oh, fuck, what am I going to do? As I mentioned on the Hawkeye recap we did, what we thought was going to be our worst enemy, this movie coming out early internationally, wound up being my best friend because it allowed for some bootlegs to hit the internet. And listen, Kevin Feige, I'm sorry. We know you listen, but I did watch a bootleg of this movie 3 times over the past 3 nights. What a film. What a film. I loved it.
Well, first off, let me just say, as someone who I believe was kind of shamed online, on Twitter, maybe even on this podcast, for the people that listened to the Spider-Man trailer recap we had once upon a time, because I decided to hop right in, get all my trailer back when it was shot off of, it was like someone's phone, which was recorded then off of someone else's phone. It was like 3 phones. It was phoneception.
I didn't shame you because I watched that one too.
Yeah. So some, again, as I said in that podcast, some would say the people that watch the bootlegs are the biggest of fans because they don't want to wait any longer and they just want to get to the theater. But you threw it out to me. You're like, Clem, what do I do? Do I watch the bootleg or do I see this in the theater? And my exact words were, with great power comes great responsibility. You have a job. You have an oath you took for the basement listeners here that we will have this thing up and ready. I'm sure people are pissed. It's not even, it took till Monday to get it out. But hey, it's like everyone has to see the movie. I think Thursday it came out in the US, right? Thursday afternoon. So hopefully, we got a
give
good
everyone the weekend at least. We understand. Some people, if you're a waiter or a waitress or something out there, you got to work the weekends. We tried to give everyone the proper amount of time to see the movie. Like I said, I got to see it 3 times because of this bootleg. The first night, and I posted like the Tobey Maguire meme where he puts on his glasses in the first one. The first bootleg I watched was pretty blurry. It was like watching porn scrambled in the 90s. What I would imagine that was like, because I wasn't alive yet.
This bastard, you have it so good.
But the next bootleg I got that I watched the last 2 nights, HD, pretty crystal clear, got to see everything, got to appreciate it a lot more. It's a movie that I really enjoyed. I wish I got the opening night experience for, but I'm glad I watched it because so many things were trending on Twitter. I saw things on the YouTube homepage. I actually didn't get anything spoiled for me, and I'm happy about that.
That me as well. I somehow didn't get it spoiled at all, whether it's, some dickhead who will tweet at you or something like that, or just like you said, I'm fucking like the YouTube stuff. I mean, there's no place.
It was on the homepages. Like people were saying that too in the recommendeds. And I don't get me wrong. When I say I got nothing spoiled for me, I think we all knew like the big surprises that were coming in this movie. But out of actual like things that were in the movie, screenshots, confirmed things, I was lucky enough to go into this completely unspoiled, and I felt so good about it. And there were certain things that I was glad I was at home for because, like I texted you, I stood up on my couch and I was like, what the fuck? Are you serious? This is crazy.
Robbie became like a straight up like a super fan. He became Jersey Jerry after Skidler's like, no dishes, nothing. with our
Yeah.
girl RFD in peace, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I also had a dark thought as I was in the movie theater, and I hear like people hacking up a lung behind me, and I'm a mask on, and I'm like, sneaking it up to get some popcorn. Spider-Man is going to fuck up more people in the next month than all his villains combined, basically. He's the super spreader spider. It's that fucked up that they had to release like the biggest blockbuster since basically Endgame comes out right as this spike's
Wait,
coming
literally, the opening weekend numbers just came through.
Yeah.
It's the third all time. Crazy numbers. And the
So
fact that, we talked about it when Endgame and Avatar were like 1 and 2 all time worldwide. We said, oh my God, Zoe Saldana, she's in both of them. Now you look at the 3 biggest opening weekends ever: Endgame, Infinity War, No Way Home. Tom Holland is Spider-Man in all 3. It's pretty fucking impressive.
Holland's the fucking king, man, and he did nothing to make us not think that after this movie. So, by the way, it's crazy too. I was thinking about it. Sony, they just keep cranking these motherfuckers out. Like, like obviously Endgame, you have to get a whole like ensemble cast together, but they're just like, let's keep milking that spider until there's no more spider
And
milk
Kevin
left.
Feige came out and said, I think today or yesterday as we're recording this, that Spider-Man 4 is in development. And he said this is because, he goes, we don't want to give everyone the separation anxiety they had between Far From Home and No Way Home. And part of me was like, listen, we were, we really wanted to see this. We were anticipating it. We couldn't wait. But it didn't feel like the last movie was fucking 10 years ago. It was pretty recently.
My wife goes, oh, did they have like in any of the movies, did they have like a post Endgame, like, oh, Iron Man's gone? I was like, yeah. I was like, Spider-Man was like the first movie that had it. I'm like, it's been like, I think there might be more Spider-Man than like MCU movies since Endgame came out, just the way that the crazy shit has happened with COVID. Like, those motherfuckers are just cashing in on the MCU.
And don't get me wrong, I love it.
I love it.
Cranking out the Spidey content. It's amazing.
As long as it's MCU Spidey content, good. Don't give us that Venom level Spider-Man content.
Listen, after this, and listen, I'm going to say right now, spoilers for this whole podcast, the rest of the podcast.
Spoilers.
If you don't want to know what happens in Spider-Man, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. We're going to go through it beat by beat. We're going to talk about it. But you say, don't give us that Sony stuff. After this movie, I'm like, fuck it. Try Andrew Garfield again. Let's give him a shot, because, oh my God, talk about a guy who knocked his role out of the park. Like, we'll get to the entire premise of it, but I've seen Amazing Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man 4 trending worldwide all day because people want Toby and Andrew back in those universes.
Oh yeah, I mean, but the thing is, I still need to have.
Oh yeah, we need this.
Batman needs to be there. He needs to be on set. Yeah. Like, we're not just letting them go on their own. Because poor Andrew Garfield, that's all I could think of during this movie. I'm like, this guy really got the raw end of the deal, because Toby's were good, and I mean, they definitely had like, they kind of spiked.
Toby at least got 2 like iconic ones before the ending.
And a lot of the things that I didn't like about this movie, some of the parts of it, I think were Amazing Spider-Man sides of the equation of all this. But yeah, I mean, keep it coming. Yeah, for sure. Sony, keep fucking doing your thing. At this point, you got the Hat Man. He's happy to do it with you. You're part of the whiteboard now. You are literally on the whiteboard.
A big part of the whiteboard too. This is as big as stakes get. And it's amazing and fascinating that by the end of the movie, we're probably going to go back to a Spider-Man whose stakes are not as big as they were in this movie. It's what a journey it's been in these 3 movies. John Watts, the first director to do 3 movies, or not the first to do 3, but the first to do a full trilogy. He had control of all 3 of these, and he knocked all 3 out of the park. Like, it's a 3 for 3 trilogy. He really crushed it.
He reverse engineered it, and that is just me saying that just so I sound smart. But I mean, it really is.
It's a reverse engineer. Like, you realize by the end of the 3rd movie that you were watching an origin story, and you're like, what?
There it is, the YouTube fucking reaction of our heads exploding live on the show. Subscribe on the YouTube.
I thought I watched this fucking origin in the first movie, and they said, no, this was all his origin. Like, the next trilogy is the Spider-Man that you know and love. Like, what? Let's get into it, because we're going to talk about this movie a lot. There is a lot to talk about. It picks up right where Far From Home left off, right where J. Jonah Jameson reveals his identity to the world. He's outside Madison Square Garden. What I didn't realize until I watched, I think it was like the new Rockstars breakdown of the movie, they actually reshot this. I figured they probably shot the first scene of this movie at the end of the last movie, but they added MJ wearing her Black Dahlia necklace from the old one. Just a little detail that they
I
threw
missed
into
that.
this scene. And she winds up, I didn't realize this, I put it in my head. She's wearing it in the final scene of the movie as well. So I think that Black Dahlia necklace, like she remembers it for some reason. It's going to be a thread in the movies. He picks up MJ when everyone's crowding around her, like, "Are you Spider-Man's girlfriend? Are you Spider-Man's girlfriend?" He swings back home. Happy and May are in the midst of breaking up. Unfortunate for our guy Happy. He seemed really, no pun intended, happy in that relationship. He's like, it could have been more fun. By the way, I can't stop staring. It looks like your Spider-Man is picking your nose.
It's looked like that the entire time. And again, if you're
Okay.
not watching the YouTubes, you're fucking up. Robbie made an incredible. What is this like considered?
Like a banner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to at least go on the YouTube and do that. And while you're here, subscribe because
Subscribe. Yeah.
I am sitting in the exact spot where our Spider-Man are pointing at each other. The Spider-Man meme, and it looks like it. So I'm gonna just
it was so distracting. I was just like, Spider-Man's picking Clem's nose right now. But they have a funny miscommunication in the apartment where it looks like they walk in on like, I don't know, some kind of adolescent like sex going on. They're like, we didn't see anything, because he's taking the spider suit off, and they realize the cops are outside. They have to break the news to May and Happy what's going on. And Stark Industries under investigation because of Mysterio, because the whole controversy, because they used the Stark Industries drones. Protesters we see throw green paint on Peter Parker like they threw blood on Big Cat at the hot dog eating contest. Peter, Ned, MJ, they're brought in for questioning. One of my favorite little details is like throughout the comics, throughout the movies, the women in Spider-Man's life seem to like always know better in a weird way, like MJ and May. And when they both look at him at the same time, and they're like, "Don't say anything without a lawyer." I was like, "Yeah, that's such classic Spider-Man." And just a cool opening to this movie. It was quick, them getting through the Mysterio stuff, but we talked about this on Lights Camera Barstool. I was on that today, and you kind of need it to get through this stuff quick. It's a long movie, and you want to get to the chunk of it as fast as you can.
Yeah, I think some people might have been upset about maybe the pacing or just the way it was all put together. But again, it was important that the way you leave off in that movie where he's basically getting doxxed, right, and becomes the most famous person in the world, which is crazy to think about. But post Avengers, obviously, Tony's dead. Cap is we don't know where Cap is. He's on that moon base. Let's be honest. We actually know where he is. So, and then it's like, whenever you find out who Spider-Man is, it's like, holy
and it's in
shit.
a murder accusation as
Yeah.
well. Like the world liked this new Mysterio guy. They were like, this new Mysterio guy's the new Iron Man. And then apparently Spider-Man killed him.
Yep, and the whole stuff with the Stark technology. I mean, it's the asses are in the jackpot there. It's no bueno. It also kind of fucked me up, man, because we're in a world where deep fakes or the way you cut something up and edit it, you can, and we have the technology already. I can't even think about what's gonna be like in 5-10 years, and the world's gonna be more fucked up and politicized than it is now. Like it's just horrifying. So that was like the real world coming into my life as I was in a comic book movie. But then again, you're able to just fucking admire the fun stuff. There has to be one swing montage in every movie. They got it out of the way early. I appreciated that, but there needs to be.
They went into the subways. We've never seen that before. That was kind of a cool scene, and I like the little nod to Homecoming when Peter puts on the "I survived my trip to NYC" shirt. And in this movie, like it's not big on him. Like Peter Parker's kind of like a bigger dude.
Yeah, and when he was in his underwear, I'm like, look at Pete, he's got a little body on him. Like I told you, that's how you get a lovely lady because saying, "Die, you got to work out a little, show you care about yourself." So shout out to Tom Holland there for fucking putting that spider bod together, and it was cool just seeing like MJ and Aunt May interact, and they have that cool like girls meeting each other, the mom and the girlfriend interacting for the first time, and they like each other. That was great, and the whole like frantic pace where it's like you just got doxxed. Happy just broke up with Aunt May, and there's fucking helicopters flying outside your house. Like you fucking feel the anxiety like building up.
It was a one shot too. It was like a 2-minute one shot, which is like super impressive by the actors as well, because there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of coordination on where they got to go throughout the apartment. It was like a very good scene to open the movie. I thought a lot of laughs in it when Happy points to the screen. He's like, "All right, at least they used a good picture of me." It's him from Iron Man 3 with like the John Travolta look.
Do you think that Tony used to call Happy sad Hogan whenever like a girl broke up? Like, "Oh, it's sad Hogan's out. Like, let's go on the yacht. We're gonna go to fucking like the Virgin Islands or Maldives right now, just to like make my guy happy, turn sad Hogan back into happy Hogan." I just like to think of that little friendship they had back in the day, eating cheeseburgers and fucking hanging out on yachts.
Yeah, and it's sad that Happy's being under investigation for the missing Stark technology, but I think that'll all play into Armor Wars down the line as well. Possibly even Iron Heart, because there's a lot of MIT references in this, and Riri Williams goes to MIT, and that show is already confirmed. It's Iron Man's alma mater. Um,
MIT, huge winner in this movie. Huge
yeah,
winner.
really. They made it the most like Spider-Man wants MIT so bad, you should want it too. This is basically a fucking recruiting tool for MIT.
That's what Harvard was when I was a kid. Like I didn't know what Harvard was. I just knew it's like that's where all the smart people are. Like you want to get to Harvard.
Yeah.
And then our guy fucking Riggs. By the way, Riggs is still the most underrated Harvard grad.
Yeah.
Whenever I see Riggs and like, foreplays blowing up and the merch is moving, I'm like, he's from Harvard. He's fucking, that's the reason he's killing it like that, man. If I went to Harvard, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd have the #1 podcast in fucking all of golf right now, too. And he discovered Bob Fox, his greatest fucking asset to the company.
He did. Coaching tree right here. In the first 10 minutes of this fucking movie, Matt Murdock shows up. Daredevil, Charlie Cox from the Daredevil show, and he's not in the Daredevil suit or anything. He's just Peter's lawyer, Matt Murdock, for now. And he tells him right away, he's like, these charges aren't going to hold up. Peter's delighted to hear that. He tells Happy, you're actually under investigation, so you should lawyer up. And then someone throws a brick through the window, and it's like a protester, and he catches it. And I love that Peter was also like ready to catch it. He sensed it with a little spider sense, the Peter tingle. And he's like, how did you do that? He's like, I'm a really good lawyer. Unbelievable that this is just a footnote in the movie too. Like when you talk about the movie as a whole, you almost forget like, oh yeah, and they fucking brought Daredevil into the MCU. Like it's crazy. I started Daredevil. I know the MCU or the MMB listeners. I almost said MCU for MMB. The MMB listeners always tell me, listen, you got to watch Daredevil. It's one of the best shows. I can't believe you haven't watched it. I've started it. First few episodes, pretty fucking sick.
That was so as someone that did go to a theater, that was like it was like it wasn't like a cheer, but it was like you heard people like losing their breath because they're like, fuck, we got our first reveal. And again, when you go back and you do like your top 10 moments of the movie, you're like, oh fuck, Daredevil was there in like the first, half of the or quarter of the movie at that. And it made me want to watch the show Daredevil. We've gotten the request a bunch of times. You guys gotta watch it. Just the way he's like, how did you catch that? He's like, I'm a good lawyer. Like it was like, I'm like, okay, I know Daredevil is in good hands based on the feedback we've heard from other people. And that 2 minutes he's on screen. I'm like, that guy's our Daredevil. We have our Daredevil,
Yeah.
Joseph Feige. Everything's good. And Trevor Doyle hit me up on Twitter. I got a tweet from a listener and he said, with Happy being in all this legal trouble and we hear Daredevil's Spider-Man's lawyer, do you think we're going to get Happy and She-Hulk, who's a lawyer? And I'm like, that's a good theory. So shout out Trevor on that theory right there. We'll see down the road.
I like that a lot because I think She-Hulk, Jose said, is Bruce Banner's cousin too. So like there's the connection. Like Bruce Banner could be, oh, my cousin's a great lawyer. I could hook you up with her. So like I like that, Trevor Doyle. May and Peter move into Happy's apartment because they need a safer place to live. There is a Patrick Ewing little thing. There's also an Islanders thing, which I wanted to ignore, but it looks like he's a Knicks fan. So bing bong, Happy Hogan.
Bing bong, yep.
Peter and MJ FaceTime, kind of a cute scene, coupley scene. They go back to school all together. There's protesters yelling at them. Someone says, are you going to have his spider babies at MJ? Apparently that is MJ's Zendaya's real life assistant that got to have that little like cameo. She threw him in the movie. The teachers at the school made a hilarious Spider-Man shrine. I loved that Hannibal was also just not in on it at all. He's like, Mysterio is right. And they were like, no. They head up to the roof. They talk about MIT. Ned has what I call a C-3PO moment, and a moment where he cock blocks Peter without really knowing it. He's just like, oh, let's go to MIT. We should room together. And they can't get in. They all apply. They have the applications. They eventually read them together. They all don't make it in because of the controversy, because of the connection to Spider-Man. And Peter sees a Halloween decoration. It's like a Doctor Strange rubber duck that reminds him, oh, yeah, I've got a wizard friend in New York. So he heads over to Bleecker Street.
Must be so sick to have a wizard friend, man. Like, we have some like, in our jobs, I guess that's kind of like his job is being Spider-Man. Like we have some funny guys, some guys who can maybe pull some string. We have a fucking like millionaire who could, if we ever need a couple
Tony
bucks,
Stark,
float us. Yeah, exactly. I'm also like terrified to even like text him or anything.
Which the Avengers might feel the same way about Tony, to be honest.
That's true. That's why fucking, what's his name? Falcon was like, begging for cash at like a bank instead of just like going to like Pepper. Let's be honest, Pepper, I almost said a bad word. I almost said a word that's usually reserved for Eleanor Bishop. She strikes me as that because Gwyneth Paltrow. I'm sorry to go on a rant here. She's too fucking cool for the MCU, and I despise it.
Always, yeah, she always acts like she's too cool for the MCU. I don't
And
like that.
and we could, and I know our whoever the casting agents for all these movies knock it out of the park. And she's actually really good as Pepper. I wish we had any other actress that just didn't act too cool for school. You don't have to love
It's
it.
also like we have so many actors like in this movie, like Tom, like even Andrew Garfield, like that are so passionate about their characters that love it that it makes like her not liking it just worse. It's like,
Yeah,
what? How are you not in on this? Look at your co-stars; they're so happy to be in this.
yeah, and they're fucking
She's
big
selling
ass
fucking
names too.
vagina candles.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, speaking of actresses, Zendaya, when Zendaya was talking about being a Mets fan and this is their year, I'll tell you, the heart was fluttering.
I think the Mets are going to go all the way this year.
She's an Uncle Stevie fan. I can see it in her eyes. She believes in Uncle Stevie. She probably has Frank the Tank blocked on Twitter. She doesn't have any time for that negative Nancy motherfucker. And it was just a very cool scene. And it kind of like what it did was after all that crazy like first scene, it kind of like centers you and brings you down like gravity wise. You're like, oh yeah, the teachers when they went to Italy and all that stuff together. You see them come back, and Hannibal obviously has the line. And I don't know. I felt like I was back with my friends at that moment, and shit's about to get crazy. And also like the little things, I appreciated that how it's not just shit's crazy for Peter, but shit's crazy for his girlfriend. It's crazy for his friends, and he's the kind of guy that would feel bad about that and be cognizant of it. So I thought that was kind of something that plays into the whole, movie basically.
Even that little scene with the teachers is just like it provides such a nice thread throughout the entire Spider-Man trilogy here, where it's like they're all in every movie in this trilogy. When Zendaya was FaceTiming with Peter, one of the pictures in the background that she had drawn was the picture of Hannibal from detention, where she would like went to detention just to draw or whatever, just to hang out. He goes to the Sanctum, and Wong is the new Sorcerer Supreme. Shout out our guy Wong. Gotta love
Big
that.
W. Oh,
even funnier
so
about Shang-Chi, by the way, too. Like he's doing karaoke as the Sorcerer Supreme. Like hilarious.
I didn't think about that. Great.
Just fucking around, getting drunk with Shang-Chi and Aquafina. It's amazing. And Strange was pissed. He's like, it's a fucking technicality. I was gone for 5 years.
It was like a blip that I like wanted them to do. I gave him the time. So I'm basically the reason Thanos is gone. Incredible. I loved everything about it. We are diehard Wong supporters.
Wong's the best.
We've been on the Wong train from day one. And all the snow and sus conspiracies, it's dead fucking wrong.
It was nothing. It was just like a blizzard came in. It was kind of just like an aesthetic choice for the movie, I guess.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. It was very cool.
It was different.
Unless now sus mind, like there might be more to that. We're gonna circle back at that some points. Like, well, that wasn't really the blizzard of blah blah blah. It was like
the multiverse breaking, like before the multiverse of madness. Like we're gonna see the Sanctum in even worse shape in that movie or something. I don't know. He does give Strange permission to try a spell after Peter's like, "Can we go back in time?" He's like, "I don't have the time stone anymore." He's like, "What if we do this one spell?" And Wong's like, "I don't know about that." He's like, "Do you remember that party?" He's like, "No, I don't." He's like, "See, it would work." Awesome. So Peter winds up messing up the spell badly. We've seen this in the trailer. It was way more well done when you watch the full scene. Like in the trailer, it was like Peter says like he wants to do something else, and this whole spell messes up. But when you see it in the movie and Stranger's like trying to construct it out of the energy lines and he's like threading it, and Peter just keeps adding on like, "Oh, what about this person? Oh, what about this person?" When he's like, "Happy?" He's like, "No, I'm very sad right now. I'm very upset with you." Was good. And he winds up having to bottle up the spell, and he kind of bottles it up like we saw at the end of What If, I thought, when they put like the Strange Supreme has to watch over the Ultron and the little purple orb. Kind of looked like that in a orange way. And he tells Peter like, "Why don't you just fucking contact the school to get him to reconsider? I can't believe you haven't done that already."
That was a tough look for our guy Peter. Peter
I didn't know you could call if you got declined from college. Granted, I didn't apply to colleges, but I didn't know that.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. When I got into Syracuse, I think I got in, but I had to like wait list into like the program I wanted to go to. So I had interviewed with like a person or something like that. But nonetheless, going to the Wizard to basically give amnesia to the entire universe, I think I would have at least looked through some other options before that. At the very least, I would have done that, or at least been like, Googled like what's the closest thing to MIT that isn't MIT.
I love Aunt May, but that seems like something she should know.
Yeah, exactly. So that was
Like,
that was
Peter,
a
why don't
real
you?
love fun.
Yeah, why don't we call him? Why don't we go there? Yeah, I don't know.
And the whole thing though, like again, fuck, fuck. All right, I love Doctor Strange. I love him. I
Yeah.
fucking think he's awesome. Actually, there was a quote. Dragonfly Jones, he had this on Twitter. He goes, MCU going from Stark at QB1 to Doctor Strange is like when the Niners went from Joe Montana to Steve Young. Bro, about to put up numbers in phase 4. Like, I love that Stephen Strange is basically going to be our fucking leader for this phase. I love the guy. But again, if a guy's just talking during your spell backswing and you can't, like, make it work, it's a tough fucking look. And
Dude's
listen,
got to do spells with AirPods in or something.
yeah, and I don't want to say this, I think I have to agree that I feel like Wong wouldn't have fucked that up. So I feel like the
Yeah.
Sorcerer Supreme, he got the C off his jersey for a reason, and it ain't going back on in my mind anytime soon. Like, I'm a little worried about our boy Steven.
A little wizard slump he was in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's before the post-credit scene, which is a whole other fucking deal we're going to be getting into.
Whole other deal. He finds the MIT admissions lady thanks to Flash. He calls Flash up and he's like, "What can I do for you?" He's like, "You got to swing me to school for a week and call me your best friend or whatever." Funny scene with Flash. Another thing that I like, just tiny moments of Flash threaded the whole trilogy together where it feels like one continuous story, one big journey for Peter and his friends. He finds this MIT admissions lady on
He's a cocksucker, by the way. I'm going to
He's a
throw the C word
cocksucker,
out, and
yeah.
I hate that much. Which, again, great
Wrote
role
a
by
book.
the kid.
He's trying
a
to
cocksucker.
capitalize on the Peter Parker stuff. Flashpoint. Come on.
I
also think, speaking of the post-credit scene, this is a prediction I'll throw out there early. I think there's a fucking chance he's this universe's Venom. What do you think of that?
Wow. Okay.
Can you do Eddie Brock again? Like, I don't know. You have an Eddie Brock in the Sony universe. We got a little symbiote here. What if this Spider-Man fanboy that always wants to be Spider-Man gets symbiote on him and he starts looking like fucking Spider-Man?
I would like. I want him to be a villain. I kind of love Venom though. I don't. I almost don't want to have him. He can be Carnage. Give him fucking Carnage,
Yeah.
and then let someone else be Venom. But no, that's actually a good call, Bob Fox. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
I just want to see him die though. I want to see him die.
Yeah, fuck him. He finds this lady on the bridge that we've seen in all the trailers, so you're like, oh shit, it's about to go down here now that we're on the bridge. He gets his spidey sense as he's trying to talk to her. Doc Ock shows up, Alfred Molina. He has his hello Peter moment. Awesome entrance, awesome performance by Alfred Molina in this whole movie. I loved his performance. Huge fight scene, awesome choreography, really well done. Eventually, he steals the nanotech off Peter's chest. His tie is like hanging out and everything. He realizes that this is not his Peter when the helmet comes off. He is able to put the nanotech on the claws, and someone went back. In the first Spider-Man movie, 2001 this is, Norman Osborn is an expert on nanotechnology. And in the second Spider-Man movie, Doc Ock says he uses Norman technology, Oscorp technology to make the claws. So they're like, there's actually in-universe a chance that like they would work with nanotech. So it's like even beyond what you would imagine, like at face level. I didn't even put that together. Someone had to point that out online. But pretty cool. And Peter is able to Bluetooth the tentacles because of this. He's just like, oh, you use my tech now? I'm using your tech. He winds up saving the MIT admissions lady. She scolds Doc Ock as she's getting off the bridge. She's like, how dare you? You shouldn't do that. And then Goblin shows up. This is the scene we've seen in the trailer. Another awesome entrance, how they had the grenade shown at first, and then he shows up. He's like, he looked like a green elf. And he's transported back into Strange's lair. Pretty fucking awesome first opening action sequence for this movie.
That opening action sequence, and I know you'll get this reference. It felt like the first match of like a WrestleMania, where you're like, "Oh shit!" Like we're in the pay-per-view. Everything beforehand was kind of like the pomp and the interviews in the locker room and the announcers and shit like that. But that fucking thing was going, and there was big hits, and you're like, holy fuck, we're here. We're locked in for the next 2 hours. Let's rock and roll. I absolutely loved it. The dueling 8-arm suits, I love because the spider, he had his 4 extra like robot arms. Doc Ock had his. They were showing off, and just Peter kind of figuring it out. This was a big movie for Peter's brain. Like you just like, oh yeah, Peter Parker's fucking like super smart. Iron Man sees him as the next him. Tony Stark saw him as the next him, which I absolutely love. The MIT lady. Badass motherfucker too, just going at like the super villain that just tried to like kill you, just throwing cars around without any fucking.
She was like, "You almost made me miss my flight, motherfucker."
Yeah, and the New York traffic, man. We've all been there before. All us fucking in the Northeast, just like, oh fuck, I need to get to JFK, and I got to take the Van Wyck. There's an entire like Seinfeld episode about it. So
I can't wait to be on that bridge the next time I'm going to JFK, though. you know I'm gonna look out for it. Like, where did fucking Spider-Man fight Dr. Octopus?
Yep, that's our guy Devlin. I remember he used to always, when he first moved to New York, it's like I get to be around all the place where Spider-Man used to be. Like we used to be near the what's the name of that stupid
The Flatiron building, yeah.
Flatiron building and
For the
stuff
Daily
like that.
Bugle.
Also, I didn't realize I didn't put the two together, but Alfred Molina was the guy who plays like the guy who lights off fireworks in Boogie Nights. Have you seen Boogie Nights?
No.
Oh, it's one of my favorites. You have to watch it,
All
Bob.
right.
He's just this like coked out dude, just out of his mind. It's one of the most ridiculous scenes ever, and I had no idea that that was Doc Ock. And it just made I think Doc Ock might be my favorite Spider-Man. I can't even get into this right now, but I just was so happy to see him. I was so fucking happy to see him, and I think that went for a couple of the other villains as we get to see him along the way.
Yeah, so Strange tells Peter what's going on. He's like, when you messed up the spell, everyone who knows Peter Parker's Spider-Man is coming into this universe. I fucking caught this fucking lizard reptile guy, and it's Lizard from Amazing Spider-Man. Peter's like, okay, we can fix this, but I need some help. He calls in Ned, he calls in MJ. Ned, in his opening scene, is like, hey, I've got some magic in my family, and Doctor Strange shrugs him off, but that is low-key a tease for later in the movie. Unbelievable. And this is the scene also in the trailer where it says, you got to Scooby-Doo this shit. And Zendaya's like, Scooby-Doo this shit. Why don't you say, please? Your spell messed it up here. Very funny and perfectly, like a perfect scene to represent Doctor Strange's personality, where he's like, this is exactly why I didn't have fucking kids.
There was a lot of parts of this movie where I felt comic book. I could see it in a comic book, right? And just kind of the back and forth and stuff. And what does he call the basement? What's it called? It's like the fancy.
The crypt?
No, it's like the under shit. I can't remember the name of it, but whatever it is, and like, oh, we get to go. I can't believe we're in the Sanctum Sanctorum. That's what Ned says, right? And it's just such a cool like vibe. And then they're going to say it's the fucking laundry room, basically. It's unfinished. Columbia sweatshirt just chilling in the background.
There's like creepy shit in the fridge, and like I liked that whole the aesthetic that they chose for that.
Oh, and shout out anyone who remembers the old show Dinosaurs, where the food would be alive. It was like these little creatures and stuff. That's what it reminded me of in there. But it's just like I feel like that is the difference now that we have Marvel and Sony doing these together. It's like the little nods to stuff like that that might have been like overlooked in the past. And just like the side dialogue, it just fucking hit, man. Everything just fucking hit. And at this point, you're like, all right, we're in it now, and the Goblin's out there, and I'm freaking out to myself the whole time. Like, all right, got Doc Ock locked up, but I don't know what the fuck's coming next.
Yeah, so Otto tells the kids, can't be the goblin that you guys saw. Norman is dead. I saw him, or I didn't see him die. I know he died from my universe. Peter goes out into the woods to look for him, though, because he heard that, oh, someone saw a monster in the woods, and he's got a new suit. What we didn't realize, or at least I didn't realize from the trailers, is his black and gold suit is not a new suit. It's his suit turned inside out. You could see the wires sticking out and everything. An amazing little addition to this Spider-Man that I loved, because I thought the suit was like even cooler having known that. He finds Electro. He also finds Sandman. Because Sandman and Peter Parker are on good terms at the end of Spider-Man 3, Sandman helps him out. He thinks that this is Tobey Maguire. He thinks that this is his Spider-Man. So he helps him out against Electro. Electro eventually becomes a human form. He's like an energy form at first, becomes back into a human form. Not the one that we saw from Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he's like a nerdy, weirdy dude. He is just Jamie Foxx at this point. And he has like a very meta line where he's like, yep, I love this version of myself. This is way better than the old fucking Sony version, basically. And they have a big fight. Eventually, they're both trapped. Peter has that wrist rocket thing that can just put him in the multiverse prisons. And we get a cut. This is one of my favorite little scenes in the movie of Norman Osborn being like tortured by the goblin mask in an alley. He fucking destroys it. He walks away from it, and it perfectly mirrors the shot of Tobey Maguire walking away from the Spider-Man suit in Spider-Man 2 when he throws it in the garbage in the alleyway. So cool. Peter gets the call from Aunt May. She says, one of your people are here at Feast. He shows up. It's fucking Norman. And he is Norman at this point. He's not the Green Goblin. He seems sympathetic. He's got a cool new outfit on. He's still rocking the green and purple,
Colors,
but in a different way. And they all bring him to the Sanctorum. They're like, this is where we need to go. I'll explain everything there. I think Jay Jonah follows him at this point. Creepy vibes when you see who we know is the Goblin to be sitting right beside Aunt May. And Aunt May, she's a saint. She wants to help everybody. She wants to give everyone a second chance. Peter at first is like, let's fucking send these people back to their universe. Ain't our problem. Aunt May is the one that kind of convinces him, like, no, they should be fixed.
Yeah, fucking Defoe just crushes it. I mean, we talked about it like offline.
Unbelievable. And the fact that he played this character 20 years ago. Like he's
It's
stepping back into
crazy.
this 20 years later and it's natural like that. Snapped right back into it.
They absolutely fucking nailed it with, and he did it again. And even when he was in Feast, he even had like the vibe of someone you would see in like a place like that that's
Yeah.
just down on his luck, has some mental issues or something like that, and just kind of needs a friend to help him out, which is basically exactly what Aunt May does. Aunt May is like a queen in this movie, man. She's a saint, excuse me, a saint.
Yeah.
The other thing I love is when they talked about Otto Octavius, like, what's your name? And they just start laughing at him right to
Yeah.
his face. You touched on Jamie Foxx. Now, I thought Lizard was by far the weak link of this, in terms of the villains. I didn't really love Electro. I thought he was the closest thing to like a Mr. Freeze with Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Oh, yeah.
where it was like a couple kind of like corny lines or like a little bit of like missing gravitas to like some of the stuff he did. But Sandman, I'll always fuck with Sandman, dude. I don't know what it is.
Sandman
Maybe,
guy.
yeah, I like that he's like realistic. Maybe it's just like the other guys are so smart, and he's just like a regular dude, has a daughter. I kind of identify him. Maybe he has like a little bit of a blockhead. I'm pretty much me. The only difference between me and Sandman is like a little bit extra sand in the underwear. That's the only difference between me and him right now. And like bloodthirst to like murder people here and
True.
there. And he might did he definitely kill Uncle Ben? Was that confirmed?
I think I don't fucking remember. It's been so long since I've seen Spider-Man 3.
Like you see him behind the gun, but then it's like I never knew if that was actually what happened. So
Yeah, I think it might have been him.
I fuck with the Sandman, and the fact that, like you said, I appreciated how it all took place from whatever their last interactions were with Spider-Man. So the fact he's kind of on his side. I don't know why they were sent there together. That I thought was weird because I'm like, oh, we're looking for Electro. Oh wait, no, we're looking for Sandman. I'm like, they're fucking together in this like middle part of upstate New
Maybe
York.
they just showed up together. I don't know.
Yeah.
I do agree that like Lizard and Electro were kind of the weak links of the villains. I didn't think they were like so bad that they detracted from the movie necessarily. Electro was better than he was in Amazing Spider-Man. So like he was an improvement for sure. But they were when you have Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe, it's fucking hard to, get anything in where it's like these guys are giving amazing performances. Willem Dafoe especially is like over the top going for this. So it's tough.
And you don't want to have Rhino in there. Like that was a fucking disaster. So man, Garfield really got a raw deal. When you just
the Rhino reference was A+ though.
Yeah,
I just had to fight a fucking Russian dude in a rhinoceros outfit. I do want to shout out our friends at HelloFresh. We were talking about feast, right? If you want to feast on some great meals, go to our friends at HelloFresh. I know the holidays are hectic. I know I don't know if the holidays are hectic anymore because everyone's got COVID, so everyone may just be chilling at home. But if you are chilling at home, if you want HelloFresh, if you want great meals, go to HelloFresh.com/14Robbie. Use the promo code 14Robbie, and you are going to get some of the best restaurant-style quality meals you've ever had. It's so much cheaper than ordering takeout. There's recipes like balsamic and fig beef tenderloin, the pecan-crusted salmon, great holiday meals that feel special without the high cost of dining out or delivery. You make a cozy comfort choice like a chicken sausage, sweet potato soup. Oh my God, that's good on a cold winter night. Go to HelloFresh.com/14Robbie. Use that promo code 14Robbie. You'll get 14 free meals and 3 free gifts. I don't know what the free gifts are. The free gifts might be, a spider suit, a fucking degree to MIT, and something else. It could be the greatest gifts of all time. I don't know what they are. It could be an extra carrot in your meal. But 14 free meals, that's enough to feed Spider-Man's villains a couple times over. You could be an Aunt May yourself, make a bunch of people meals.
Throw the Doctor Strange ring in the fucking package as well.
Yeah, it could be the little, what do they call it? The sling ring or something? Whatever that is.
I'll give you a little hint there. This is God's honest truth, little story here. We bought wifey's dad HelloFresh for his birthday. We got him a couple months worth, and he loves cooking, and most importantly, he is awesome at it. And it's like he just gets everything delivered to the house. He's retired, and we said, hey, learn some new recipes, kind of try some new things. 10 out of 10. It's loved by him, who's retired, me, married with kids. Robbie has his nice, lovely Lady Foxes at the house, and we've all done it on our own. And you kind of learn some new stuff. And I'm telling you, man, it tastes fucking awesome.
Delicious meals, truly delicious meals. Yeah. Back to the movie. An awesome moment And something that, like, I didn't even really think of going into this movie, like, oh my God, we're going to get that moment, is Norman Osborn meeting Otto Octavius for the first time ever. These characters that existed in separate Tobey Maguire movies, they get to talk. They have, like, what seems like a mutual respect for one another as, like, scientists. They're like, oh my God, is that you? Is that you? Sandman tells both of them, like, yeah, he's fucking right. You did die, and so did you. I read it in the newspapers, it's all over the news. You died fighting Spider-Man. Electro kind of realizes in his mind, he's like, oh shit, I think Spider-Man fucking killed me too. Lizard is like, do you know if I die? Norman is put in a prison. He's very like just scared at this point, and Spider-Man clearly sees that. He's like, you just put this fucking elderly old man in a prison. What's wrong with you, Doctor Strange? And Doctor Strange is like, if they die, they die. He goes Ivan Drago on him. He's like, I don't give a fuck about these villains. Like, you caused a big problem. Peter, very much sympathetic, very much feeling Aunt May's energy, snatches the box from him, and we get this big Doctor Strange versus Peter Parker fight scene. You referenced WrestleMania before. This felt like that ladder match at WrestleMania where you're like, oh, this is the hardcore match. This is where anything goes. It's going to get crazy. It's super trippy. It's very much like the Doctor Strange CGI effects that we see in his movie, in Infinity War, a little bit even.
Inception, a little bit of Inception where worlds are fucking upside down on
the
each other.
city, New York City, is flipping in and out. He eventually steals the sling ring. He traps Strange. It also began with Spider-Man getting like sent out of his body, like the astral projection or whatever, and he was able to still avoid Strange because of like the heightened Spidey sense or whatever.
That's how he was doing it. I was trying to figure out, like,
I think it was a Spidey sense, yeah, because they had little squiggles on his head were going off. So I was like, oh shit. One of the sneaky, this is almost like the Daredevil thing where it's like when you talk about the entirety of this movie, you don't think like, oh, the Doctor Strange versus Spider-Man fight, but it was such an awesome fight. And he like goes math versus magic on his ass. Peter Parker's just such a nerd.
I love that math could take on magic and actually beat it. And then, like, math is facts, right? And magic is this power, but it's facts. Yeah, that's it's and to go back to the WrestleMania now, we're just gonna make this wrestling. Fucking wrestling's hot right now. It's hot as the
That's what it is.
It's when the two faces fight each other. You're like, I don't even know who I'm rooting for. Like, I was rooting for Strange. I'm like the fucking I'm the pragmatic one. I'm like, all right, young man, give that back to the Wizard and send those villains back to where they belong. Peter has fucking rocks for brains, but you make a good point. Aunt May raised him, and he has that, like, I don't know if it's the empathy, sympathy. I don't know which the right word is.
Help people.
He just wants to help people, and like you said, now that I think about it, like, he doesn't know that that's the Green Goblin. He just is some old man who showed up at the fucking, soup kitchen. Like, of course
he's like, you want me to kill this person? Like, you're just down with that? Like,
and Strange is like, yeah, motherfucker, I just fought Dormammu, who would have like engulfed the world. I just took Thanos off the fucking. I got snapped away for 5 years, so Thanos didn't take the entire universe to fucking hell and back. So it was like, I love as much as I love like the special effects, the fights, the cool shit. Like I didn't even notice the squiggly lines because when he does that, I always look at the person leaving their body and I just stare like, look at him, he's out of his body. And I just love that whole side of it.
Shout out to the second bootleg for me noticing the squiggly lines. The first one, I wasn't even close to seeing those bad boys.
I'm here in the theater too, and I'm going, kill those villains. They are villains. That's the fucking definition of their word.
See, for me, I was like, oh my God, this is Luke Skywalker. Like, Peter Parker has so many Luke Skywalker vibes here of like, he still sees the light in these evil people. Like Green Goblin, look at that motherfucker. He looks like the most evil person of all time. And he still sees the light in him. Like, I was like, oh, I like that.
Robbie, listen, if you are ever like, at your apartment, you see someone outside, like, hey man, can I use your bathroom real quick? Don't see the light in them. Close the fucking door and run upstairs and call the police. Like, do not do that. People are like this for a reason.
There's one guy. This is the perfect opportunity for me to finally tell this story. I live pretty close to a bank, and I could see it from my window. And there's a guy that comes to this bank. He's an old man with 2 duffel bags full of what I assume are money or something. And he just fucking screams at them, let me in, once a month maybe, and they never let him in. I think he wants to put his money in the bank or something, but he's like a violent, angry old man. He's crazy, an absolute crazy nutbag. But he shows up once a month with 2 duffel bags trying to put his money in that bank. They don't let him do that. That guy, I'm not going to see the light in that guy.
I take it back. Robbie, you talk to that guy because that could be some dirty money. I don't know how to launder money. Actually, let's take this offline, but I think I want to get into the money laundering business because I don't know any other way I'm going to make enough money in life. I just see all my rich coworkers. I'm like, I want to be rich like them, but I'm not as talented as them. And I don't have like the long-term like investments in the company that they do. I think we're
Hey,
gonna have to warm
subscribe.
this crazy guys.
Maybe me and Clem will be the next fucking Brianna chicken fry if everyone subscribes here.
There we go. Subscribe, you guys,
Be the
please.
most
I want
famous
to
people in Boston, like her.
make my
Where
kids
they said
fucking
they have
marry.
wicked crime. We'll shout it to
Wicked
Boston.
crime.
I thought about people watching that in Boston when he said that. I was like, opening night in Boston, people must have been like, "Hey, fucking talking about us."
They're probably like, "Fuck you, you motherfucker!
Yeah.
We don't talk like that."
Peter brings all of the villains to Happy's apartment at this point. He wants to cure them using Stark tech. He has the fabricator, which like blows through the kitchen, and Otto has a funny line where he's like, "He's gonna kill us all." He fixes Otto's fried chip that was allowing the claws to control Otto. He's like, no wonder this guy's going fucking crazy. His claws are controlling him. Aunt May has a great chirp here, kind of a chirp at Otto, where she's like, "You want a glass of water?" He's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Salt or tap?" He's like, "What?" She's like, "Because you're an octopus." And I read that in the comics, Aunt May and Otto Octavius eventually become a couple. So this might have been teasing of like flirting by Aunt May.
Oh, okay. All right, Aunt May.
When his chip does get fixed, he's super grateful, and I thought this was probably the best like acted scene by Alfred Molina in this movie, where you could immediately see like his whole attitude change, and he's like, "Oh my God, Peter, thank you. Like, what can I do to help you?" They start making other stuff. Sandman has a funny moment where he sits down on the couch and he gets sand on it. He starts like trying to brush it off, and he makes something for Electro as well to put on his chest, and then the Spidey sense goes off. And every single person that I've talked to about this scene in my life has said the same thing. They said, "Did you feel like that is what a panic attack feels like?" And I'm like, yes. Everyone I know with anxiety is like, that's what a panic attack feels like. Just kind of like nothing's clear. Everything's a little hazy. You could tell he knows something's going on. None of us know what's going on other than spider sense is going off. And it's the goblin coming out of Norman. He hits him with a web. It goes on that little arm. I forget what it's called, like Dummy or Wally or something. It was the arm from Iron Man, which we haven't seen in a while. That was Iron Man's helper. And Willem Dafoe delivers this line so well. It's one of his best lines in the movie. And he says, "Norman's on sabbatical." It's like, oh shit. The goblin is out. Huge fight scene at this point. Through multiple levels of this, Dr. Octopus escapes. Electro takes the thing off of him. He escapes. And he uses some moves from the Spider-Man video game, which I wanted to shout out. They actually took a couple things from the Spider-Man video game in this. And I thought that was really cool. Like, I noticed them right away. I thought that was cool. The feast is like a huge focal point of that video game. I think they probably brought it back to the forefront before this movie and stuff, before even Far From Home, because it was featured in that. But awesome fight scene. The best part of it, I feel like, was when Spider-Man is on Green Goblin and beating the shit out of him, punching him. And Willem Dafoe just stares up with that wicked smile and he's laughing in his face like, holy shit, that guy was going for it. And Willem Dafoe said he only accepted this role if he could do the majority of the stunts himself. He really wanted to be in on it.
Yeah, and he probably like looked back and was like, "Shit, I had it like pretty good 20 years ago. Now this thing has become something completely different, right?" So it's like, let me just go all in. When you said the great line he had, I thought you when the line I wrote down here was, "You're strong enough to have it all, but too weak to take it all."
That was so good too.
Awesome.
Another one of his best lines. Like,
yeah,
oh my, he was running up the score.
And
Norman Osborn was running up the score.
There was a few others too that I had written down along the way. I love. Oh, by the way, I loved a different one in a much different way was Jamie Foxx when he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna act like I'm not standing here butt ass naked," as he's just standing in the middle of the woods. That me laughing. And then, where are we? There's really no way to put this. Like, we're in a wizard's dungeon. Like Zendaya just delivering that like so smoothly. But yeah, like when you get the Spidey sense, and it feels like Peter kind of has like all these plates. He's kind of spinning them. You're like, we're in control. Everything's going good. Not even that, but like, I love one of my favorite things in comic book movies, or even just like movies in general, is when like the villains that we've known become the good guys and they're kind of working together. I always love that. Even like video games, if like a villain joins your side or something, I always just love that whole vibe of it all. And everything just went so fucking bad so quickly.
Like,
and
boy, that escalated quickly.
Yeah. And forget about how this stuff all ends, but just even when everyone escapes, I'm just like, oh man, Peter fucked up really badly right now. And all this, to this day, I'm going to get so mad at this motherfucker, Peter Parker. Because think about all the changes they had to do for the Infinity Stones. And I'm sure like they didn't break it down. Hey, listen, we got to send Cap back. He has to put all the stones back for space continuum, yada, yada, yada. Because he was snapped, I guess. So he wouldn't have even been around for it. You're fucking trying to keep these villains alive, heal them, then send them back to their fucking universe. What are you doing? I'm just a little upset at Peter for
I'm on
all
his
that.
side. I appreciate you, Peter. You're staying strong, staying pure. It just gets worse for him at this point, though. The fight winds up in the bottom of wherever the place Happy lived is, and Aunt May is there. She's there with the cure. She still wants to hit Osborn with this cure, thinking it'll turn him back into that old man from Feast. And she does hit him with it, and it doesn't work. For whatever reason, it just doesn't work on him. The glider comes in, it hits May real hard, and you're like, oh shit, isn't that fucking spiky at the end of that thing? And Goblin escapes. He gets on his glider, throws a grenade at them, and you realize pretty quickly May's hurt. She's gravely injured. She falls down. Peter, oh my God. Tom Holland, the way he plays this, it was the most tragic scene I've seen him in since like Mr. Stark. Like, please, no. She says the line. She says, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. So the official line from Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, the original line. It's not, it's misquoted in the Tobey Maguire one, but she says it word for word in this. And she dies. Super, super sad scene. Happy shows up at the last minute. He's detained. He kind of sees it. Spider-Man has to evade. The next shot is an all-time Spider-Man shot in the history of these movies where he's just crying in the rain and the J. Jonah Jameson report is going on in front of him. That's like cinematic, masterful shot right there. So sad. R.I.P. my dog Aunt May.
R.I.P. my dog Aunt May. Man, when she gave that line, that's when I'm like, fuck. Aunt May's our Uncle Ben in this multiverse, huh? And this is coming from a guy who was like, man, I hope we get to see Uncle Ben die again. Be careful what you wish for, kids, because I saw that on screen and I was just like, what a goddamn idiot. I'd give anything to take that back. Because
it's like Uncle Ben we never really knew in the movies, right? Like he's always just killed off in the first one, and we know that as like the thing that kicks off this journey. We got to know May through all these movies. We got to know that she's a great aunt. She's awesome. She takes Peter out to fucking ramen, and then they fucking take her away from us like this.
And she's fucking Marissa Tomei. If you don't like Marissa Tomei, you're an asshole. And
asshole.
I'll just come out and say it. I'll be the fucking pighead. She's a goddamn smoke show. So it's like, she's so goddamn hot and happy. Happy is in love with her and she broke his heart. And I'm just like, God damn it. Why did my big fucking stupid mouth have to say I want to see Uncle Ben? Now I just want everyone to fucking. I want all the Uncle
You know what else I said about this? If you would have told me prior to No Way Home, if you would have spoiled it for me and said, May's going to die, and before she dies, she's going to say, with great power comes great responsibility, basically. I would have said, oh, man, really? That seems corny. But the way they pull it off in the movie isn't corny. It feels earned. It feels like, and it makes you have that, like, gutting realization of, like, oh, May's about to die. Like, this is it for her. And it kicks this movie off on kind of a new trajectory where Peter's crying. He's in front of the news. Ned and MJ are worried. They want to see Peter. They know that someone has died in this accident. So Ned tries to summon him. He's like, I just wish we could see him. The way he did it was so funny. He accidentally kind of opens a little portal. She's like, try that again. He's like, all right, I just wish we could see him. And who walks through but Andrew Garfield? Enter Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man to this movie. An awesome entrance. And both his and Tobey's, which we're going to get to in a second, are kind of like subdued entrances. They're not like Spider-Man swings in, he kicks someone in the face, and it's like, no, they kind of let us have this moment where we get to have the personality of both of them shine through. I think this is the funniest scene in the movie where MJ is just so skeptical of him, and she's like, crawl around. And he's like, I don't have to crawl around. This is plenty. And then Ned's mom is like, or Ned's grandma's like, well, can you get that cobweb for me? She's throwing the bread at him. And this is the first sign of like, Andrew Garfield is here to fucking try to earn himself back that role. He's trying to steal this movie.
We, as the kids like to say, we were down bad when we lost Aunt May, right? Like
we needed this scene right now.
Yeah, and the fact that Andrew Garfield comes in first, and he really, again, for all the shit he took for his movies, which, I think some of it's very fair. It's like, man, it wasn't even Spider-Man. It was like, I was fucking in the Facebook movie, Social Network. I'm like, I fucking like that guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the biggest bummer that it didn't work out for him. So they kind of just brought us back up. And that's the other thing is like, you just feel so like, like, oh fuck, everything. Like, not only is Aunt May dead and the gob and all the villains are loose, but J. Jonah Jameson's doing his fucking,
He's Alex
media
Jones in this, by
bullshit.
the way. He's selling supplements.
I couldn't think of the guy's name. Alex Jones. He was Alex Jonesing this shit, and then they kind of just like brought it all back. And what was the Nana's? Was it Nana or she had like
I think it's Nana. Yeah.
Yeah. I just love the like they're talking with her, but then some of it's
she had some knives on her wall. Did you see that shot as well?
Oh yeah, sus as a motherfucker. I didn't want to say it. I don't want to throw
even
her on
had
the sus
a
list.
sewing machine, which looked like it had some like green and yellow spandex on it. I was like, is Ned creating a fucking super suit?
It was his Lola. It was his Lola. That's what it was. So they're like, "Oh, Ned's Lola. Sorry, Ned's Lola." And then she's like, "I'm going to sleep." It was fucking adorable. And I'll tell you, I'm not going to say. I'm going to save it for later. I'll save it for later in the podcast. We have some awards to give out later on.
Oh yeah,
it's on my award list. But like we knew what was coming. But the biggest thing is I can't believe how good the CGI was on this. Like,
oh yeah,
Andrew Garfield wasn't in Spider like that was all just CGI. It's crazy. I thought you would think Andrew Garfield was in it. He
what do you mean in it?
He wasn't in it.
Oh, because
you think that was Andrew Garfield? Have you been following the press junkets and the interviews?
Andrew Garfield explicitly said he's not in the movie.
Yeah, so this was
good
clearly
point. Deep fakes, yeah, that's a good point.
This
impressive
is
CG,
industrial light and magic. Shit, this was Luke Skywalker and 100,000 trillion.
And then they say, "Try again. Why don't we see if we get Peter back? Let's do this until we get Peter." And everyone knows where this is going. They set it up brilliantly, where they want you to know where it's going. And Tobey Maguire comes through. He's not in his spider suit. So Ned has the great line of, "Oh, great, it's just some random guy." And he walks through. They're both looking for our Spider-Man to help him out. They both are like, we have the sense that he needs us. And does he have a spot? Unfortunately, Empey gets a shout out. The Empire State Building. They're like, great view. But also the Chrysler Building gets a shout out. And then they go, "Oh, no, we know of a spot." So they go up to the roof. And this is a sad scene where all the Spider-Men get to meet for the first time. And it's a scene very similar to one that we get in Into the Spider-Verse, where they all compare their origin stories after Miles Morales loses his uncle, the Prowler. And they're like, yeah, I lost Uncle Ben. I lost Gwen. We learned that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man has gotten rageful since then. He stopped pulling his punches. It seems like he's fucking killing his villains. Like, oh my God. Tobey Maguire says, I killed the guy that, I got what I wanted. I wanted this guy to die. Didn't make me feel any better. And they basically tell that this Spider-Man, he's right. We don't want you to become like us. We want you to continue staying on this path of not killing anyone. You don't have to face that darkness. You shouldn't have that involved in your life. And maybe my favorite moment in the movie is when they have the great power reprise, I called it, when Tom is like, right before she died, she told me with great power, and they cut to Tobey, and he finishes the line. Puts chills on my arms just talking about it, because it's like, man, that line was so earned. 20 years, and it wasn't just a cheap fan service. Remember that. Like, that's what Tom needed to hear. Tom Spider-Man needed to hear in this moment, and it was delivered from Tobey, who's like an older brother figure to him at this point. Shout out to Tobey Maguire, too, because great performance from him, and he slipped right back into that Peter Parker role. It felt so natural.
It felt so natural, and it was so they each played their own roles so different, right? Where it's like Andrew Garfield's kind of like the guy next, like just such a nice guy, right? And Tom Holland's his version, which is awesome. But then Tobey's kind of like he's a little goofy, right, and awkward amongst it all. And in I was actually gonna say, Bob, you gotta get to the multiverse is like poetry. It rhymes, right? Like that's kind of what you got from all this. I thought shit got real on that roof, but the symmetry between it all is what kind of kept it light and fun, like the whole anonymous superhero thing, right? And then he says it, Tobey says it after.
That's what he just said.
Yeah, that was great, and and then the Aunt May thing with where he finishes it without him even like he would never in a million years know that Aunt May said that on her way out, and it was like, all right, we're fucking good now. And I don't know, man, they had a fucking cool dynamic, and you like that's what I remember. Like, oh yeah, Peter Parker. He's smart. He's fucking like super strong. He has these powers. He's just like a guy you want to hang out with. I think if you did a draft of every Marvel character, I mean, guys you just want to hang out with for like a day, a weekend, Peter Parker, I think would be everyone's like top 3. Just like a good dude. He'd fit in famously in the basement. If Peter Parker ever wants to come down to the basement, hey, listen, if your name is Peter Parker,
at ballpark, he's a big Mets fan.
Yeah, that's true as well. If there's a listener whose name is Peter Parker, they have a driver's license, we'll have you on an episode of The Basement. I mean, that's the
Yeah, I
kind of
mean
thing
that
we're
would be
doing.
fucking awesome if your last name's Parker and your parents had the brains to be like, I mean, let's name our kid after Spider-Man. Be pretty fucking
I,
sweet.
I had two kids that I grew up with, and their names were Tom and Jerry, and I'm like,
Oh, really? I mean,
yeah, that's a little
you're just
crazy.
setting them up to hate each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
All the Peters get to go into the lab together and do real Peter Parker shit here. Great dynamic between all three of them. Like there was so much chemistry there. It was fascinating to see just out of nowhere. They've never been in a movie together, but it fit. It felt like they're three versions of the same different person. Ned, ex Toby. Have you ever had a best friend? Did you have a best friend? And he's like, yeah, I did have a best friend. He died in my arms after he tried to kill me and he betrayed me and became a supervillain. And they kind of like they let it sit for a comedic beat, but then later when Ned tells Peter like I won't try to kill you and turn into a supervillain, they let it sit for another beat where you're like, "Oh no." But we like Ned. We like their friendship. Are you going to fucking break our hearts like that? They have some funny conversations about the natural web shooters where Toby can shoot him out of his wrist and they're like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" And he's like, "You can't do that." And they're like, "No." I think I've said it on an episode of My Mom's Basement. The first Toby Spider-Man is the first movie that I could remember seeing in theaters as a kid. And I always thought that was just Spider-Man's origin story. I always thought that was he gets bit by the spider and he could shoot webs out of his wrists. And I learned much later in life that was like at the time, comic fanboys were like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You made him a freak." And it's like, I don't know, you got bit by a radioactive spider.
Shit would be trending these days if that movie came out now and they'd have all these like mean things to say about it. But I love that it's like it's such a guys being what's better than this, guys being dudes. Like, can you shoot web out of your dick? Do you have dick webs, Peter? Like that's what they wanted to say to their like weird like multiversal brother. That's everything we were all thinking it at some point, right? We all thought it at some point after the thing. And
even Tom's like, no, he's not making fun of you. We're just we don't have that, so we're curious. Like the way he's kind of being reassuring is so funny.
The curious, like that's like the perfect word. They were just being curious, just a couple boys just comparing like their bodies with each other.
Yeah.
And not only just the war stories, but again, I this sounds like such an old man thing. Peter Parker is just such a nice boy. That's what I like to say. Like if Sienna ever came home and she's like, "Oh, I met a boy named Peter," he's just such a nice boy. He's such a good lad. God, I love these guys.
When
man.
Andrew and Toby are talking about like, did it ever work out for you? Nah, I don't really have time for the Peter Parker stuff. Did it work out for you? He's like, it's complicated, but yeah, like I wound up making it work. Like I liked hearing about their future. Like, oh, you know what? Like, good. I want them to be happy in the future. Like, especially Toby, because he was like my Peter as a kid. Like Andrew as well, though. I might have told the story in the past, but I went to go see the first Amazing Spider-Man at midnight with my friend Dom, and the trailers played. And then as soon as it was time for the movie to play, the projector just went out. It broke. And we were like, oh. And my friend Dom's like, shine your phone flashlight at the screen. And when I did, he goes like this. And he makes a spider with his hands. And the whole theater goes crazy. And eventually, like 20 minutes later, they wound up moving the whole theater into another like screening room, another theater. And I said, like, as we were moving, that moment where he did the Spider-Man logo and everyone cheered, we had such a sense of camaraderie in that theater. We were like, oh yeah, we're all going to see fucking Spider-Man tonight. So both of the Spider-Man, I do really enjoy. I thought the establishing shots for the final battle, some of the coolest, most like drama building shots of just the sunset going down on New York City. We have Jay Jonah talking to Spider-Man. He's interviewing him via FaceTime, and Spider-Man shows off. I'm at the place of second chances, the new and improved Statue of Liberty. We see the Statue of Liberty has Captain America's shield on it. They're in the process of putting it on, so there's scaffolding everywhere. Scaffolding, the best friend of action movies. And they're BSing about their history, the Spider-Man, as they're waiting for villains to show up. They're like, hey, did you ever fight weird aliens? He's like, oh, I fought an alien with black goo once. We get a great shout out to Tobey Maguire breaking his back on Seabiscuit, where he's like, oh, my back. He's like, let me crack it for you. Isn't that better? I loved Toby telling Andrew, you're amazing, man. Don't doubt yourself. You're amazing. You're truly amazing. He just kept saying it over and over again. The chemistry between the three Spider-Men, as good as we possibly could have asked for.
And I will allow, just because I know it would have been tough to do, it would have been like a very like fan service. And like, listen, there's a ton of fan service in the movie. It's just what they're going to do. This movie is more a fan service movie than it is like a film, right?
Yeah.
Like
they knew that too. Like going in, they were like, I don't think they thought they were making The Godfather with this.
Exactly. And I'm 1,000% all right with that. I knew that going in. I would have loved to see the pointing meme in the suits, but they did it in
They
the
kind of
lab.
did it in the lab, right?
Yeah.
They kind of did it later on when they regroup after the first like shot at the battle. They did it with the masks off. So it was
Oh,
like,
do they?
yeah, but
I
they
didn't
had the
notice
suits
that.
on, but the masks off. So I
I
saw a
could.
screen cap where it kind of looks like that. Like it would have been hard to just have the like pause for comedic beat as well because they did do a lot of those
They
moments.
did a lot
I mean,
of
I'm
those.
something of a scientist myself. We forgot to mention that. What a fucking callback.
That was in my top. I have a top 3 moments, and that was
Yeah.
definitely. And then again, I saw it in the theater, and I think the bootlegs you could get some laughter and stuff. That was a big
There
time.
was,
Like
yeah,
that
there
landed.
actually was some like I got a little bit of the theater experience because you could see people get up at points and go to
Yep.
the bathroom and when people cheer when the Spider-Men come on screen and stuff. So I got a little bit of it, a little bit of the theater experience. And I'm gonna go, hopefully, I think I got COVID a while ago. I think I'm on the last half of it. Also lucky my symptoms are gone at this point. Like I felt completely normal today. Next opening weekend, I bet will still be cool. You know, sold out
Yeah.
theaters, maybe not the biggest Spider-Man fans if they didn't see the first opening weekend, but people seeing it for the first time. So I'm hoping to see it in a packed theater next weekend.
Hey Bob, I got news for you. There's gonna be a whole half our fucking office is gonna be seeing it for the first time next weekend too in person
True.
because
Yeah,
everyone is
I
fucking
could go
COVID
with the
right
whole
now.
COVID crew. Yeah. And now that I know that, um, right, yeah, a week post COVID, I'm the safest I could possibly be. I
Yeah,
might wear a Spider-Man mask to the theater anyway, but that's just because of my fandom, you know?
you have super
Shout out Chris
immunity.
Castellani.
Yeah, exactly. It's Chris, man. I fucking love that guy. That was
Yeah.
incredible. But yeah,
Um,
you're gonna be the strongest guy there this side of Spider-Man in terms of your immunity standard. It's gonna be
yeah.
incredible.
Electro, Sandman, and Lizard arrive, and the Spider-Men at first do a really bad job of working together against them. They're like, we've never worked as a team before. They all regroup, and they're like, what the fuck? I thought I was Spider-Man 2. I thought you were Spider-Man 3. No, you're Peter 3. You're Peter 2. And our Peter tells them, I was with the Avengers. And Toby says, that's awesome. What is that? And he's like, it was Earth's Mightiest, you know? And Andrew's like, a band? You were in a fucking band? He's like, I wasn't in a band. He sets the record straight. They have another funny, like, very meta scene where he's like, you're Peter 3. And Andrew Garfield is like, all right, I'm Peter 3. It's like everyone knows he's the fucking, you know, in the public eye, the worst Peter. And they trap Sandman in the Statue of Liberty. They have this amazing, you know, they're swinging around the Statue of Liberty. When they all land, that's Thor landing on Wakanda in terms of just like a screenshot. You could make that a wallpaper tomorrow and it's
Yes.
perfect. They trap Sandman in the Statue of Liberty. They wind up curing him. He's the first one to get cured. Ned and MJ are forced to come through the portal that they created because Lizard comes in through the lab and stuff. Doc Ock shows up for a face turn. An awesome. We kind of knew he was a face turn, but it was like a fool you out because he grabs the Spider-Man at first, then he grabs Electro, then he puts the thing in Electro. He cures Electro, and Lizard is cured in the right next moment. And finally, Doctor Strange comes back. He's like, I've been dangling over the Grand Canyon for 12 hours. This scene, amazing. Electro tells Peter he wishes that he was black. He's like, you were always helping poor people in Queens. I kind of figured you were black. I was kind of hoping. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sure there's one out there. Little tease for Miles Morales. We all
Hell
know
yeah.
that. We've all wanted him to come into the universe. Toby and Doc Ock catch up, and they have a callback to their very first scene ever on screen together, where Doc Ock says, "How you doing?" He says, "I'm trying to do better." Peter says, "I'm trying to do better." When Doc Ock says, I think he says something about like, "Oh, journalist, I'm not into that. They're all liars these days." And he's like, "Oh, I'm trying to do better." So that was cool. And Doc Ock just being like, "Oh my God, you're so much older. It's good to see you, man." Like, it makes you feel warm inside. You're like, oh my God, it's been 17 years since these two have been on screen together.
And it's kind of like you forgive him, right? It's like the guy had a chip fucking who
Yeah.
amongst us
Doc
hasn't
Ock,
had
even
a
at the
run
end of
in.
Spider-Man 2, you know, like he has a redemption arc in that where he kind of saves Spider-Man. And they made a point to say, like, I had Peter by the throat and then I came here because when he had Peter by the throat, it was right before he had his redemption in that
Yeah,
movie.
they made sure to hammer
He's
that
like, I'm
over.
still a bad guy.
All I could think of in the beginning of that scene was all the goddamn assholes who were breaking down looking for, oh, look, he's fighting another Spider-Man. The Lizard's doing this. I'm like, what a bunch
Yeah.
of assholes. It was on the screen, of course. We have to
It
do
was
this
a
stuff.
cool moment too when you saw what actually hit Lizard. It was like a flipping kick by
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
yeah.
It was a nice move.
You said it too. I love the teamwork and just like the throwing together. They're using the spidey senses, and even fucking like there's power bombs and shit. Like there was like
Yeah.
legitimate moves and stuff like
The
that.
power bomb is from the PS4 game.
That's from the PS4 game.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. And the power of the sun in the palm of my hand. Right, we get
Yeah,
that kind of
that was another
callback.
good shout.
That
Yeah.
was Ned hanging. I remember I said so MJ falls, Andrew Garfield gets his redemption moment, which I thought could be the case. I called that
Yep.
in the after the trailer, but then Ned was hanging up, and I said, "Us big boys, we're like fucking Wile E. Coyote. Once we go, we're going fast, and there's nothing but like some smoke once we hit." And I thought he was cooked. Fucking Doctor Strange, the cape comes on, and I'm calling right now. That was some foreshadowing right there. We talked about magic, the tingling in the fingers. He's already fucking using the sling ring and all that kind of stuff. That felt very foreshadowing.
Even Strange took note too. He's like, "Did you just open a portal?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like,
Yeah,
walks away.
That was a hard from Doctor Strange.
By the way, shout out to that cape. That's like an unseen MVP. We talked about it a little bit in What If. Spider-Man got to wear the cape in What If, and like he wears it a little bit in this movie, which is like, oh, I remember that from the little thing. Cape is just classic. We talked about it like the magic carpet before. Like
the magic, yeah. That was the perfect analogy. It has like the same fucking vibes to me. Like he has the same personality, all things considered. And like, I mean, obviously we'll get to the end, but I was just happy that when it was all said and done, Green Goblin was the villain. Because when you think, it's Batman,
they made the right choice there. Like they gave him the most screen time, and for good fucking reason.
Batman, Joker, X-Men, Magneto, Spider-Man, Green Goblin. Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom. Like that's
only solidified it. Like even more so, where you're like, oh yeah, like the iconic moments that Green Goblin and Spider-Man have in this movie. It's like I didn't think we were gonna get more of those from Willem Dafoe. He does show up. He's got kind of a new look. He's got the goggles. He's got tattered purple hoodie still on over the suit, which makes it look like his old appearance, right? And MJ falls, like you said, the glider takes out Tom. Andrew saves her for redemption. At that moment where he's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And she's like, "Are you okay?" He starts crying. Great performances all around. The multiverse starts cracking open around us. Some Spider-Man villains are coming in. Can't really see anyone very clearly. People have said maybe we saw Scorpion, maybe we saw Kraven, maybe we saw Rhino just by the silhouettes. I watched the bootleg where I couldn't see any of those. And then Peter and Goblin wind up sharing the final fight on Captain America's shield, which is at this point fallen kind of into the water. The sun is rising as this fight is happening, which makes for a very cool visual over the entire fight scene. Peter stops pulling his punches. He power bombs the Goblin. He starts beating the ever-living fuck out of the Goblin. He picks up the glider. They really focus in on how sharp that thing is, and he picks it up to kill him, and Toby stops him. And this is a great moment. No words even need to be said between Toby and Tom. They just share that look, and Toby's like, "Don't fucking do this." Toby, at the end of his movie, didn't want Goblin to die. This is his best friend's dad. He was like, "I can't believe that this had to happen." He winds up getting stabbed for this because seeing the good in people is always going to come back to bite Spider-Man. Andrew throws Tom the cure right as Goblin is saying, I might have been the one that hit the final blow, but you were the reason you were there. You killed her. Talking about Aunt May, and he's got that crazy deranged look again. You're like, holy fuck, give him the Oscar now. And he stabs him in the throat, curing the Goblin. He looks to the side. He realizes what he's done. He's Norman Osborn at this point. Toby and Andrew are very proud of their little brother, Peter Parker, for not killing him. And at this point, sad shit starts happening. The villains start coming through. I mean, as if, sadness didn't happen before with Aunt May, but it gets real sad here. Villains start to come through, and Peter suggests a new spell to Doctor Strange. He says, "What if everyone forgot Peter Parker? This is all my fault, right? What if everyone forgot?" And Doctor Strange says, "All the people that know and love you, we would forget." And he says, "We," like he loves Spider-Man. I was like, oh, Doctor Strange, you love Spider-Man? He let him call him Steven in this moment. He's like,
it was Sir and Steven was a good running joke they had going
throughout the whole movie. And then by the end, call me Steven. And it did sound weird when he said it too. He's like, "Thank you, Steven." He's like, "Still sounds weird." I was like, it does fucking sound weird. He has to go say his goodbyes to the Spider-Man. This is such a great scene where he gives him a big hug, and they just have that shot where they're arm around each other, looking on proud, like this is our new guy. He's the new face. He says his goodbyes to MJ and Ned. MJ says, "I love you." He goes to say it back. She's like, "Nope, say it when you find me." He explains the whole situation to them. You're going to forget. And he says, "I will find you and I will explain." Everyone's sent back to their universes at this point. Peter visits MJ what seems like months later. Maybe it's the winter. It's Christmas decorations up around the time Hawkeye takes place. And he doesn't tell her what
Hmm.
she planned, what he planned. He had a note in his pocket. It looked like he kind of saw her and Ned got into MIT. They seem happy. They seem like they're out of danger. She has the band-aid that she said, oh, it didn't hurt during the battle. She's like, I swear it doesn't hurt at all. And then she says it doesn't hurt anymore to him. So he could tell it hurt at the time. And like, he's like, all right, I'm just going to let her live her life. I'm going to let Ned live his life. He goes to visit the grave of Aunt May. Happy shows up. He says, how did you know her? He said, through Spider-Man. And Happy says, me too. So you get it confirmed in that moment that everyone does remember Spider-Man. I think everyone's memories of Peter Parker are faint, but they remember him as Spider-Man, not Peter Parker. They don't know him as Peter Parker. So some people were saying, does this completely erase all the old movies? It's a restart. Not necessarily. He's still Spider-Man's still an Avenger. You know, Spider-Man is still out there as a superhero. People remember their experiences with Spider-Man, just not with Peter Parker. And in the final scene, you see he's constructed a new suit with a sewing machine. I like to think that he went back to the blue inspired by Toby and Andrew when he saw it on them. He's like, fucking A, I'm going back to the classic suit. And you see him swing through a snowy New York City. This is one of the best spider suits we've seen. It's so classic, bright, vibrant, kind of shiny. And we're going to get a Peter Parker that we kind of know and love from the comics, a down on his luck, broke kid in New York City. It looks like he's in the apartment that Toby was in, doesn't have money anymore. He was given everything that he ever wanted, and then he got it all stripped away from him. And we're back to square one. And that's Peter Parker. It's the story of Peter. He's a great guy, makes all the right choices, but always the world just fucking fucks him.
He gets fucked. He's such a nice boy too. I love that Peter
Yeah.
Parker. He's such a that suit is fucking clean too. I'm very happy
Clean
that's going to
suit,
be our
yeah.
suit moving forward, at least for the next movie. Might get a little black in it at some point. We'll save that for later.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said it perfect. It's like a reboot and a rebirth of the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and he's going to have all the struggles that this Peter never had because he had like the richest, smartest man in the world at his back,
And
and
that
all
was
the
the
shit that
biggest
came.
gripe too people had for this Peter Parker, which I never personally had as a gripe. I always viewed it as we've seen the Uncle Ben Peter Parker. You know, we've seen that Peter before. So getting a Peter Parker who was like just grabbed into the Avengers by Tony Stark, it was an interesting look. But now, like, everyone's satisfied. And the people that were happy with that, now we get the Peter Parker we know and love. And the people that were not happy with that, oh, well, this is the Peter you were looking for the whole time. Like I said, oh, you thought Peter was just this rich kid who got everything he ever wanted handed to him. He was. And now he's the Peter that we were building to this whole time.
I think that as you're building this universe too, I think you'd want this guy. Like I think I don't know how much more we could have done with that Peter. It would have felt almost like cheating, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we're kind of like leveling it
And
down
how do you
a
go
bit.
up from there? How do you go
Yeah,
up from this movie? The Spider-Verse, all of the old villains, 20 years in the making. You don't go up, you go down. You
yeah.
do a grounded movie the next movie. You do Spider-Man and Daredevil versus fucking Kingpin in New York City with a side of symbiote infecting some people or, something like that. You take it back to the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
And as much as like he didn't have it easy, but like our guy Tom Holland here, like the guy lost May, right? Dead. MJ doesn't remember him. Ned gone. Tony was like his fucking mentor. He lost him
Yeah.
before this even started. And even Happy
Yeah,
has
Happy is
no
like his
memory of him.
last thread to Tony too.
Yeah.
Think
So
about Far
it's
From Home when they were talking about Tony, and Happy was like, "Oh no, he chose you because like he can't have those conversations anymore."
he lost Strange, right? And that's like
Yeah,
if Strange is gonna be the guy we think is gonna be this phase, like that's the problem. Like that is brutal, man. So and like obviously they like hammer at his apartment. It's a shitty little place, and he's gonna be getting bugged for rent. I'm sure nonstop in the
might
next
have to get a
movie.
job at the Daily Bugle taking pictures of Spider-Man, right?
Oh yeah. Oh man,
Should
that
Spider-Man have an OnlyFans in 2021 where he sells pictures of himself?
want to see these webs? Want to see how I shoot these webs? Join my OnlyFans.
I don't know. He could. The post-credit scene, the first post-credit scene, I'm gonna have Clem explain to me right now because for whatever reason on my bootleg it was in Spanish. I watched it in
No.
Spanish. Yeah, so I know that Tom Hardy showed up as Venom, and it was kind of a play on the Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene where it's like he did show up. He was kind of pulled into this universe in whatever which way, and he just chilled in a bar the whole movie, I think, and he's with Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso.
Yeah, football is life, and
Yeah.
Spidey is life. I didn't even realize that was him. Shit. I
I
look at
didn't
Danny
either. Shout
Rojas.
out Glenny Balls. He was the one that realized it. He texted me. He said, "Is Danny Rojas going to become Venom?" And I was like, "Was that fucking Danny Rojas?"
The fact Glenny's a Ted Lasso super fan makes me so happy. It's so
Yeah.
pure, right?
Yeah.
That's meant to be. Yeah. So basically, because he has been, for the people who didn't see the Venom post, I don't know if it was mid credits,
Venom
post
2,
credits.
yeah,
We like to be very specific on our area of the credits. He gets pulled into this universe at the end of that one. And so he's there, and they're he's like, oh yeah, talking about like aliens. He's like, oh no, there was an alien here. They're talking Thanos. He liked to collect stones and blah blah
really?
blah. So they're kind of just, and I think Danny Rojas' family got blipped. So he's talking about how his family just like disappeared and all this kind of stuff. So they're talking about that, and then at the end, he's like, no, and he gets sent back by so in the Venom, in the Let There Be Carnage mid credits, we're to believe that that's when Strange pulls him in by mistake, and then at the end of this
kind
one,
of, I think, because
okay,
the confusing thing about and they should have just made it so that was the point. But in the Venom post-credit scene, Venom makes it out to Eddie Brock like he's in control of it. He says to Eddie Brock, "Let me show you. Like you've only seen a fraction of what I could do. Let me show you." And then he phases into the universe.
and
So
that's
they
the
make
thing.
it out to be like Venom's in control of that, but I would have liked it better if it was just he got pulled in by Doctor Strange fucking up the spell.
I think basically what the symbiote says too is like we know everything that goes on. The symbiote can tell what's going on in the different universes. So they're kind of like explaining it all. And then at the end, he gets shot back into his universe. But there's a little fucking Venom jizz on the ground that was probably going to wreak some havoc with us in the next Spider-Man movie, which is probably coming out in the next like 6 days. The way Sony fucking works here. I will say this. I don't know how much you could hear in the Spanish. Everything in that movie that was good. That was Marvel and Sony working together. They're like they're fucking Andrew, and they're Toby. That Venom voice is so fucking bad. And I'm just like, that's Sony by itself.
Shout out Chris Castellani. We did Lights Camera Barstool, and he said instead of a Venom movie, they tried to make The Mask with Venom. And I was like, oh yes, that's the perfect way to put it. Is they're trying to make a weird comedy where Venom and Eddie Brock are buddy, and it's a rom-com, and I'm not into that. I said I want Venom to bite skulls off. I want Venom to be creepy. I want to be afraid of this guy. I don't want to think he's a whatever. I have 2 things on this, or really just one, because I said the Venom thing before about I wish, or I look forward to Flash becoming Venom in this universe. That's my personal wish.
Yep.
One, I think it would have been funny to have Topher Grace sitting next to Tom Hardy at the bar.
That would be good.
And you didn't have to reference that he's Eddie Brock or he's from a multiverse. He could just be a random bar patron number 2, but it's him as the actor, right?
He could have been the guy from that 70s show.
Exactly. Like Eric Foreman, is that it? Yeah, could have been him. Another thing. This is a take that I've been sitting on. The only person I told this to is Fran, and Fran told me I broke her heart by telling her this. Okay. Unfortunately, because Danny Rojas was in this scene, it got me thinking about Ted Lasso a little bit, and I think Ned is going to be our Nate the Great in this universe. I think Ned is going to remember all of his experiences with Spider-Man, because as we saw, MJ still had the little cut, so I think they were there on the Statue of Liberty with Spider-Man. They didn't know it was Peter Parker. And I think Peter is going to decide in the next movie, let me leave them out of my life. I put them in danger too many times. I'm going to let them live their life at MIT. And Ned is going to come back as maybe the fucking Hobgoblin, maybe another villain, and say, Spider-Man abandoned me. And that is going to be the origin story of Ned, the former Nate the Great, all of that. What do you think about that?
Well, Rob, one of our awards was sus character of the movie. And I mean, again, I did this with a nice old man. I did this with a dog that was murdered. And I'm throwing my fellow big bone guy Ned on. I feel bad, but I think he's destined to be a villain. I think the beat that they leave with those 2 times where it's like, best friend, you tried to kill me, or, tried to murder me. I promise I won't kill you. That Ned does not remember saying that. Now he doesn't remember probably.
Yeah, he didn't say that to Peter. He was with 3 Peter Parkers.
Yeah,
fuck.
Exactly. So
he doesn't remember that at all.
I think it's some bad fucking juju, and I don't know.
That's gonna break our hearts. He kept the Emperor Palpatine, like, fuck.
Yep, and then the MJ factor. Whenever there's a girl involved, and they seem like they're just friends, but if he has a crush on her, they maybe date a little, or something happens where he's jealous of Spider-Man. Like I see this all going. He's smart as a motherfucker, right? We know Ned's an MIT,
Yeah.
and he has some potential magic abilities.
He's been losing a lot of weight too. If you see the actor,
Oh
he's
yeah.
like a lot of weight. I think he's prepping for I'm going to be a Spider-Man villain in
I'm
a
gonna be
couple years.
Spider-Man, and I'm gonna be dating some A-list celebrity ladies out in Hollywood in real life. So I'm telling you, Ned, I love you. As a fucking, I almost feel like I have to ride with him, just as like the Big Bone Boys. We have to kind of ride together here. But I mean,
Star Wars fan. Built that Death Star, which they brought back for a funny gag in this
yeah,
when they had the arm, put it back together, and then knock it over.
it was like growing, and then knocked down.
Yeah.
But Ned he's number one on the sus. That's the sus list right there. Is Ned? Ned is
And
the
it's
most
like
sus.
you could see it coming a mile away. They're gonna break our fucking hearts again, and they're gonna break Peter Parker's heart when they have to have Ned fight him, and it's gonna be like, "Don't you remember me?" I did read online that so this whole I think it's called One More Day is the name of the comic that this was kind of based on. And it was Mephisto's very involved in that one, of course. But it involves Aunt May dying and Peter being like, is there anything I could do? I think he sells his marriage to Mephisto so he can no longer know Mary Jane in return for getting Aunt May back, something like that.
I remember
But,
this. I've read up on this in the past. Yeah.
I read that when Peter eventually goes back to Mary Jane, goes back to the people that he knows and loves, and says, I am Peter Parker, Spider-Man, their memories come flooding back. So that immediately gave me the hope that that's kind of where they're going to go in the future. Because I think, let's say Tom signed on for another trilogy, is the rumor, right? Let's say they do 3 more movies. If you did like a little Gwen Stacy story or something, and then by the 3rd movie in the next trilogy, Tom and MJ are reunited and the memories come flooding back, the Black Dahlia necklace, all of it. That could be one of the greatest love stories of all time. I think you end that trilogy with the wedding of Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Or, Michelle Jones.
Yeah, I can see that, and this is the thing that keeps me going. Like, it's the biggest thing with that everyone forgetting everything. It's a magic spell. If a magic spell fucking is casting, and you're just not going to remember it, and you're like, well, how would you not remember this? It's a fucking magic spell.
Magic.
It's also a magic spell by a guy who fucked it up, the whole magic spell to begin with. So there is some outs here potentially to get some memories flooding back at some point. So I'll sign up for that as well. I'll definitely.
Do you want to?
And by that point, I'm gonna really want it to. I'm gonna be like, I just hope Tom and Zendaya are still together.
I love them already. I said the fact that they're dating in real life is the only thing holding me back from a depression that they can't be together in the movies.
We needed that right now. Like, I feel like they might not even be like.
But also, they have to stay together now because they can't fuck up these movies
till at least the pandemic's over. Like, we cannot. Like, Bob, I don't even want to think what you're gonna be like if you read on the news in like a month that they broke up and like we're still like stuck in our houses in the middle.
Think of the kids.
Think of the kids.
Think of the kids. Fran is the same way as me. She said she was Googling at 2 a.m. Their ages, and she was like, "All right, they're young, but it could work. It could absolutely work."
I saw someone tweeted out that I guess he said he wants to like maybe take a little break from acting and have kids. I'm like, I don't mind you trying to lock that down with Zendaya as soon as possible. But does she want to have kids at this
couple
age?
of the century right there.
Have
little spider babies.
Now,
they said, are you gonna have a spider babies? Have spider babies. And I guess before we do awards, we should talk about the Doctor Strange post-credit scene. We got a little trailer for Doctor Strange. I'll call it a teaser trailer because it's only like 2 minutes, but we see a lot. We see America Chavez. We see, I think it's called Shuma Gorath, that big monster with the one eye. Most importantly, we see Strange Supreme from What If, something that we both said as soon as we saw that episode, holy shit, it would be awesome if they brought him in live action. And they did. They said it's about to get weird. And Strange Supreme is in the fucking multiverse of madness. Looks pretty sick. Our guy Waldron. Shout out our guy Waldron.
Yep.
Looks like you made a damn good movie.
Few people asked if they had to watch What If to catch up and all that kind of stuff. And again, What If is kind of one-offs, but I don't know if they're going to bring any. I can't imagine they're going to bring that and be like, you need to know what's going on here. No. I would watch them before the Doctor Strange.
It'll add to it, yeah.
It'll add to it. And if there is by some chance some sort of tie-in or even just something that it would just be like, oh, I know of that either because you had read the comics or in this case saw the TV show. Just do it. But
Captain Carter, possibly. There's rumors about Captain Carter and
really?
Doctor Strange too, yeah.
The fact that they threw the cards on the table like that, which by the way, it was just really weird to go from like post-credit scene to a post-credit trailer. It was
they haven't done that since Captain America: The First Avenger. They showed a trailer for the Avengers, and that was the last time they did that. It's been almost 10 years.
And I feel like it's also probably a product of the pandemic, right? Where they probably wouldn't have done this because I mean, Doctor Strange would have been out. We would have had all the WandaVision shit would have come in. You left out fucking the big woman, the fucking Miss Redhead herself,
Forgot
the
to,
fucking head
Wanda is
honcho.
in this, and they actually reference WandaVision, which for a movie where there were a million point at the screen Rick Dalton moments, as soon as he was like, I'm not here to talk about what happened in Westview. I was like, Westview, oh shit, WandaVision.
Or like letting off air horns in the movie theater. I fucking love that. And it's funny.
Visually, it looks crazy too. Like it has those Doctor Strange crazy effects where it's like the universe is colliding in on stuff. We even saw a shot of like the universe fading away in that black goo gasoline way, like
Yeah.
lava lamp way, which is from his What If episode.
So there's some Dr. Suss is back and he's it was cool. That's all that was my notes. I was like, it was cool. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it was
But
short. It was like just a little tease for us, but it'll hold us over for until the official trailer drops.
I feel like what they thought Doctor Strange, or at least what I thought Doctor Strange was going to be, Doctor Strange 2 was going to be after Doctor Strange 1. It's dialed up and it's, completely different than what I thought it was going to be. But I feel like they've had to dial it up now, just the way that everything has broke with the phases and who's come back as characters and kind of the way everything's gone. But honestly, I just hope Scarlet Witch is on our side. Like that's
I
the
know.
like the
She's not, we're in fucking trouble too.
Yeah, exactly. The
Not
sus list
only
is
is
all
that like a character we like, that's a character that'll put us in danger.
yeah, the sus list is all fun and games when we're like, oh, which character is going to betray us? This one could just destroy the world, or maybe birth mutants. I don't know what she's going to do.
True.
I'm just happy she's back in our little universe here. By the way, I saw the movie with Sienna. I took her. I was like a little worried about it because it could be a little scary. She liked it. 7-year-old. I think you guys will be okay for all the parents out there. If you want to take your kids. And she said on the way there, her favorite character now, because she sticks with the girls, it's Scarlet Witch. So she saw Scarlet Witch. She was like, "Oh fuck yeah!"
Oh yeah.
I'm like, "Where'd you learn that word?" No, she didn't say that. But she was stoked.
I'm glad that like Willem Dafoe didn't give her nightmares.
Yeah.
That was probably the closest that's probably the scariest stuff in the movie, right?
The Aunt May stuff was like kind of tough.
Yeah.
Someone's just dying in front of you, but they did a good job not really like focusing on her, or showing her
gory,
dead.
right? You didn't see like someone get stabbed. It was like she got hit and then she's just bloody.
He's like, help, she needs help, and like you never see her dead, and then like the people burst out of the ambulance or whatever. By the way, that was the other thing. The Green Goblin, like the flyer, it's like the jagged edges of it were never like the main focus, but it's somehow the thing that ends up fucking everybody
now
up.
it is.
It's like Fortnite, they made this whole game to be this whole widespread thing, and it was just like the little battle royale just caught on fire. Like the Green Goblin stabby things are the things that separate. And by the way, I thought we lost Toby. Did you think we lost Toby?
I did.
When he stabbed him?
But they also they reassure you pretty quickly, like, oh no, he's fine.
Yeah,
he's been
like,
stabbed 1,000 times.
$1,000 times. But I saw him standing. I'm like, I can hear that stabbing any second now. It happened. Like,
but he had it coming out of the way he in the final fight has the blade come out of the gauntlet. It's pretty sick.
It was Chekhov's blade. I knew it was going in somebody, and unfortunately, when I got Toby, but I guess everything was fine. So
Jeff said someone in his screening fucking screamed when that happened. He said someone screamed, no! And then 2 minutes later, Toby makes a joke about it. He's like, I'm in so much pain.
I thought you were going to say 2 minutes later, Chris was like, oh yeah, that was me. I was in my full Spider-Man outfit screaming no at the movie theater.
Do you want to get into our awards?
Yes, actually. And before we do, I just had one question that I had thought of because we didn't open up the mailbags, right?
Oh, no.
This is a marathon. Do you think, I've had a few people ask this, and I thought this as soon as I looked there. Do you think we'll have any sort of tie-in with Hawkeye with the finale, knowing that they knew the timeline? Do you think we'll get something? Because you have Daredevil out there, you have the big fella come in, you have just kind of that whole New York underworld. Do you think we'll have anything where we'll be Rick Dalton pointing at the screen?
I really hope so. I think it would be fucking awesome if a random character. I heard Spider-Man swinging around New York again, like just something subtle like that, like. I don't know. Part of me says no, just because I feel like history would prove with Rise of Skywalker and The Mandalorian that the tie-in comes the day before, right? And that kind of feels like we brought back Kingpin and then we brought back Daredevil.
Yep.
That felt like the tie-in to me. But I would love any kind of reference to this movie, the events of this movie. Some crazy shit happened over New York. I mean, did everyone see what was going on in the multiverse? Because Hawkeye must have been it was Christmas time, right? He must have been what was going on with the sky?
Yeah. exactly.
Or was that just the people that, like, I don't know, with people that were on the Statue of Liberty? I don't know when that scene took place either, because there was obviously a time jump to the end for Christmas. But another random thing that I want to bring up before the awards, just because if we're saying all the positive things about the movie, there's one slight quote unquote plot hole in that term. Me and
Yeah.
Jeff talk about it all the time. We hate it. People just use plot hole as like thing I don't like about a movie. The slightest plot holes in this movie where they say the spell brought in everyone who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Electro never knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and this is only reinforced by the scene where he says, "I thought Peter Parker was black," and
Yeah.
that confuses me because I'm like, "Oh, you kind of reinforced it in the movie that he didn't know who he was." So it's not anything that makes me look at this movie and go, "I take it from a 95 to a 94 because of that." Like it's not even big enough to make me go, "I'm gonna take this down a notch," but it's just an annoying thing that sticks with you.
Yeah, if I had viewed this movie like I would an Infinity War kind of movie where it's like this film standalone thing where this is an event. It's more of
Yeah,
a, it doesn't feel
an
like it's
extravaganza.
yeah, exactly. And we're hitting the reset. We're kind of giving everyone everything they want, and they gave us everything we want pretty much, right? Doctor Strange could have said
I
another
haven't seen one
line.
person that said they didn't like this movie.
Yeah, me either. It was probably one of the
Rotten Tomatoes, I think, is a 95 critics, 99 audience.
wow, what really?
Yeah.
Shit.
The last time I looked at it was literally those numbers. Crazy.
If it was like everyone that knows Peter Parker, Spider-Man, or looks like Jamie Foxx, and then Electro comes in,
Yeah.
I've been like, all right, that's fine. But like, yeah, so I'm not going to get that upset. I probably would be
They could have said
nitpicking.
everyone that knows Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and it would have worked because Jamie Foxx knew both Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Gotcha. Yeah. So
They could have just ADR'd that line.
yeah.
Go in and
So
dub that over for the Blu-ray release.
we're gonna be we've been
That's such
slurping
a
it the whole
nitpick,
time,
though.
but we
You
have
know,
to
like,
we have
such
to.
a nitpick for like an amazing Spider-Man 2 reference, a movie that like you and me texted about it. Like Feige was like, nobody saw it. Fuck it. They'll probably assume he knew him. Let's get into our awards. I think you have the categories pulled
Yep.
up, right?
Okay. So we'll start with all right. So the sus character of the movie,
Yeah.
sus of the year. Mine was Ned. Already kind of broke it down.
I think
Who
I'm
is yours?
definitely with you on Ned. I'm worried about Ned. Like I said, I'm worried he's going to become the next Nate the Great, formerly the Great, now the Taint. Yeah,
Hate
Ned
the
is
snake.
without a doubt the sus character of the movie.
Yep. Comeback player of the year.
This one is so tough. It's between two characters. I'm gonna go with Willem Dafoe, and I'm gonna go with Willem Dafoe because it's been 19, 20 years since he stepped back into that role, and I thought he did as good a job, if not better, a job at portraying Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin as he did in the first one. So I'm gonna go with Willem.
That's fair. I'm going to go Andrew Garfield because I think anyone who stepped away from his other movies or didn't even see him, I didn't see him, I didn't give a fuck about him. Anyone who stepped away from this movie is like, I fucking like that dude. I'd love if he got another crack at it. I don't know how it would work. Maybe if they do a DC where it's like, Pattinson is this Batman, but Keaton's that Batman. If they want to do something like that, I'd be 100% all right.
He was the other one I would have given it. Like, both of them, stunning performances where you're like, oh, I went into this, expecting to just love a Spider-Man movie, and you come away like really thinking about their performances, all their scenes.
Exactly. And if they do bring him in another Spider-Man movie, though, you got to give him the good shit. Give him the good villain or give him the good writer. Whatever.
Let him fight an alien. He wants to fight an alien so bad.
Well, yeah, let him fight an alien. That'll be. I don't know the Secret Wars or the other. What's the other? Like all those different things. Like we can have a bunch of Spider-Man in that shit, right? Like we've already broached this. These guys seem to be.
Rumor today it said that Marvel rumor, like, you have not seen the last of Toby and Andrew, and I hope that's true. Both of them. Bring them back. Like, and they could be tiny roles, they could be bigger roles, they could be mentors. I don't think audiences are going to be confused by multiple Spider-Men at this point. I mean, look at the numbers that this did. Everyone saw this fucking movie. Everyone knows that there could be multiple Spider-Men at this point. Like, I think you could have multiple Spider-Men exist at one time.
Everyone saw this movie in the middle of a fucking pandemic where you can't leave the house and be stuck in a place. Like
I have COVID and I made a way to see this movie. Like everyone saw it.
I also, so like you said, Andrew Garfield was, I think, like one of the obvious answers. So I also threw another one on there in case we had to go. And you already mentioned it. I think Doctor Strange's cape. I thought he died. Didn't he get ripped apart?
He did get ripped.
So I thought,
You got ripped in Infinity War, maybe?
yeah, I mourned him. I thought he was gone. So unless this is a different cape, which I mean, it's fucking, Doctor Strange. I'm sure they can whip up a fucking magic cape anytime. But he came through when it mattered a few times. So I had to shout out my guy.
And like an unlikely hero.
Yep. Top three moments of the movie for you.
Okay, I wrote this one down. So number one, I made reference to earlier. For me, it's one of the greatest moments in the MCU because it's the only moment in the MCU that can be 19 years earned and 19 years in the making because the MCU didn't exist back then. And it's Tobey Maguire finishing the great power, great responsibility line from Tom. That put chills in my arms. I texted Jeff right away as I was watching the bootleg, and I was like, I'm about to fucking cry. That was so good. Number two, Spidey senses go off in the apartment. The way that they showed that, leading into that fight scene, Norm's on sabbatical, the whole, the power to take it, but you can't take it, the power to have it, whatever that fucking line was. It was great. Whole Spidey sense scene made me feel like a panic attack. And number three was the spider banter when they're all sitting around, when they're on the scaffolding right before that final battle, and they're, oh, you're amazing, man. I never fought an alien. No, you're not lame. Like all of that, because you really never thought you would see that. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but like Marvel is finding a way to outdo themselves and show us stuff we've legitimately never seen.
Yeah, this was kind of the Spider Endgame, right? That's kind of what this
Spider-Man Endgame. Could have called it that, and it would have fit.
It's the same kind of vibes you get when it's like, oh, he got to meet his dad again, and like just all the little things. Mine were number three. Basically, all the different lines that landed in terms of the fan service. I'm a scientist myself. The great responsibilities line. Both May saying it and Toby. The fact that they just brought him back up and it all existed. I don't know. I'm a sucker for all that multiverse stuff. I was actually thinking I'd love to meet like the multiverse versions of Clem and Robbie. I just love to see what's going on with those fucking suckers in the other worlds. I bet they're all right. I bet they're
cool guys.
I want to meet like the asshole too. I want to meet like the bad guy, the bad boys.
Clem Supreme.
Clem Supreme. Number two is Peter stopping the impale. I just love that because I felt like he knew it was. You know what I actually got? I got Star Wars vibes from it. I felt like that was Luke about to fucking just fucking go to town on Vader, or the Emperor, and Vader stops him, kind of a thing. And then number one, I just love seeing Aunt May die. Nah, I'm just fucking around. that was kind of cool. It's crazy to say as a non-Cap guy, when I saw that shield on the statue, and I missed it in the trailer, so completely over my head. Jokes on me, I guess. I fucking love that. It's just like, again, I think that's just someone who loves those two Avenger movies so much, and it brings it back there. Anytime you throw the T-Man, you get some Infinity Stones, jargon, or you throw something out where it's like, this is the new world we live in. We get the Rogers the musical, we have the Battle in New York, plaque or whatever, or even just seeing the shield and seeing how like the world has changed since. Actually, the fuck. My guy, where's the Tony thing? I want to see a Tony Stark like that. That should be
He's got all the graffiti.
Big guy gets graffiti. I guess like he could be the Banksy of fucking superheroes. Oh, what the fuck, man? Like, I guess
shot him out in like the first second of this movie as the Sony intro is going. You hear J. Jonah Jameson be like, "This guy was going to be the next Iron Man." I think I put it on one of the newspapers too.
His name's about to get dragged through the mud with all the happy stuff and these Mysterio lawsuits and shit like that. But again, I loved how the statue was out there because it was a complete curveball for me because I see the Statue of Liberty. I'm like, oh, there's a Statue of Liberty. Yeah, of course that's what that means. It means liberty and second chances. And then the shield, I was like, let's fucking go. So that got me hyped up. Again, that was when Howard Finkel gets on the mic back in the day, and you're like, oh, the main event is here. Like, that got me all hyped up for that. Next up was, and by the way, I wrote top three moments in my notes twice, and I had the same order, and I wrote them at different times. So they were just in my head, and I was just going. So they were flowing through there. LVP of the movie, least valuable player.
I think we're gonna have the same pick. I think the L stands for Lizard.
Yep, Lizard. I wish we had like a sixth actual villain in there, and whether that villain, the Sinister Six, would have been.
I guess it was Venom, but he chose to stay. Yeah, I think they might be like saving that, which is crazy because they did 5 in this. It's like, why'd you do 5 if you were saving the Sinister Six? But I think maybe Mysterio and Vulture and like some bigger villains that we already know might be in that in the future. We got 3 more movies to go.
I can live if, like, waiting for the Avengers Assemble line to come. I can wait to see all 6 of the Sinister Six together. But, like, do it at some point then, because we got so fucking close with 5. It seems silly. Like you have
We're
the
on the
fucking
edge.
name and
Yeah.
everything.
Like,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
you're right there.
But Lizard, I mean, what's like Lizard's fucking cool looking in the comic books too. I kind of dig
He wears the
Lizard.
cape. I like, or
Yeah,
not the cape, the lab coat.
like this coat. Yeah, exactly. So, again, he did nothing for
It's
me.
funny when they
And
called him a dinosaur when Ned came.
yeah,
Like, is that a dinosaur?
and it kind of reminded me with Tony and Rocket. It's like I didn't even know you could talk until just now.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, you got to give the MVP for Spider-Man: No Way Home. Who do you got as MVP, Robbie?
The chalk pick. It's Tom Holland for me. I think Tom Holland gave legitimately the best performance of his career in multiple scenes. I was taken aback by how good he was. I think this solidifies him as the best Spider-Man if he wasn't already. I know that there's a lot of people that love Tobey. I love Tobey because of nostalgia, but there's just no better Spider-Man story to me than this Tom Holland Spider-Man story. Not only through these 3 movies, through Civil War, through Infinity War, through Endgame, all of that stuff added up makes this one of the most complex, amazing, depthful Spider-Man Peter Parkers we've ever seen. So it is the chalk pick. I feel like you're saying, who's your favorite character in Spider-Man? I'm going Spider-Man, but it's Tom Holland for me. He blew me away.
It's named after him for a reason, right? So that
Yeah.
I think it's a hard time to really get upset about it. All right. So I put 2 down again because in case we had the same one, I'll give shout out to Defoe. I think Defoe was kind of
Yeah.
my like. I mean, the guy just fucking crushed it. He really wasn't on screen enough. Like if he had been in that bridge battle a little longer and then we had a little bit more, but I do think he's kind of the
Yeah, he's
drug.
only got like 3 or 4 scenes. Some of them are longer scenes, but
He fucking crushes it too, but it's so hard. So I'm gonna remix it on you. It is Peter Parker, but it's Peter Parker's brain because that motherfucker outdueled Doctor Strange with math.
Yeah.
Straight up, A squared plus B
Geometry.
squared equals C squared. He's going fucking hypotenuses and shit, Pythagorean theorems and stuff like that. And he comes up with cures for multiple villains with all different kind of ailments, electricity, fucking fried microchip. Yeah, cured that ass. And in the fucking mix of it all, they kind of like figure out a way to work together. So, I mean, Peter Parker, he has webs, he's strong, he's fucking whatever. He's fucking brilliant too. So I got to shout out my guy. Is just as much, MJ, she ain't going for fucking like just the nicest looking dude. She likes a guy for her brain. She's a fucking MIT student. So, and I don't know, man, I fucking love Peter Parker. The guy really got a raw deal.
Speaking of MIT, by the way, someone pointed out in the final scene, you see he puts down a box in his new apartment, and it's got like a GED study book to imply that he dropped out of high school because of all this stuff. And someone said, like, there's no fucking way he would have to study for the GED. He's going to MIT.
Right?
He's Peter Parker.
The same thing.
He's a genius. He ain't using that book.
It's like, do I have to learn about a little more about Beowulf or something like that? It's like, dude, you came up with, again, ways to like cure whatever the fuck is going on, schizophrenia with Green Goblin. I think you can figure out how to fucking pass the
You
GED.
make webs in a lab. Dude, you're fine. But that was the Spider-Man No Way Home recap, unless you got anything else.
I got 2. First of all, I want everyone to right now pause the fucking YouTube if you have to. If you're not on YouTube, hop on YouTube. I need you guys to leave your awards in the YouTube comments. I want to hear MVP. I want to hear LVP. I want to hear comeback play. Whatever you want to do, or make up your own awards or your top moments. Anything. Just throw them in the comments.
We want to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's gonna be plenty of people who are gonna have all these different like ways that they thought about the movie. I kind of want to see you guys always bring like different angles of it, which I love. So do that. Hit subscribe and all that kind of stuff. Also, 2 more things. 1. Where does this stand in your Spider-Man movie like rankings here?
I was really thinking about it. It's so high up. It's I really rate movies on, in my mind, like how many times am I going to rewatch it? How many times am I going to go back to it, have fun with it over and over and over again? And I think out of the Spider-Man movies, this is probably going to be the one I wind up going back to the most. Just in that Infinity War Endgame way, has the most fun moments, has the most, it moves, it fucking goes. Every scene is like, we're on to the next thing. So I think this is high up. I would put it, I can't confirm it right now because I only watched it on a bootleg. That's the other thing. I feel like I haven't fully appreciated it yet, but I would put it in the top 3 with Into the Spider-Verse and Tobey's Spider-Man 2. I think it's the best of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies in terms of movies that like are spectacles and that I want to rewatch. I think Homecoming is probably a better like film, a better story. The twist in that with Toombs being the girlfriend's father, amazing. Yep. Far From Home, another one that I love, I go back to still to this day, but I think I'll go back to No Way Home a little bit more.
So the thing about No Way Home is, like you said, it almost like a toy you can play with over and over again because you have all these different villains and you have the MCU spice added to all this, right? Where, all right, I think we could all agree the Amazings are getting thrown out.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3 is getting thrown out. If you like one because it's the origin or whatever, but I think it goes. There's two in the mix. I think you can throw all the little fucking Holland home, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
them, and then.
It's splitting hairs between Holland's trilogy, in my opinion.
Yes, yeah, agreed. It's like
they're three very good movies, all in the same realm.
Which villain did you like more? Which
Yeah.
Cease story did you like? Where that can kind of decide how that all goes. It's funny though. I feel like a lot of people are still saying like Into the Spider-Verse is one for a lot of people. This I'd say it's probably like 2 to 3. Even when KFC asked me after I'd seen, he's like, "Hey, did you see it?" I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "How did you like it?" And I'm like, "It was a really fun movie." He's like, "Oh, really? Like that's all it was? It's not like," because I think everyone was expecting like a masterpiece, an Endgame. Oh my god, Breathless. And it's like it wasn't that though. It was a fun movie.
Below that, I think.
Yeah, and it was also the most fun I think I've ever had in an origin story though. And it's because again, you're not expecting to be watching an origin story, and then you're like, holy shit, I just watched this fun ass origin story where it was like we got to watch, like, we basically had a prequel. We basically just lived through a prequel
trilogy.
A trilogy. Fucking crazy.
Never been done before.
If only Disney could hit a fucking prequel trilogy out of the park. Maybe a sequel trilogy too would be nice too. So I'd say it's probably like 3 for me. But it's like it's a good 3. It's kind of on its own tier. And in terms of
how many Spider-Man movies there are, 3's pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good.
It's better than most of the Spider-Man movies.
And I know it's not under the Disney umbrella, but I'd say it's probably a tier. I originally said tier 2 movie in terms. I think tier 1 is reserved for Endgame and Infinity War. For me, my Guardians, I have them kind of the next tier below. This might be tier 2. It might even be tier 3, but it's like the best in tier 3 in terms of all those other movies down there. Iron Man 1, stuff like that. So would you say is it for you on your MCU? Is it like first
pretty
tier,
high up,
tier?
I think. I think, like you said, like tier 2, tier 3, like it's not Infinity War Endgame in my mind.
Okay.
But it's pretty high up, especially because I have that connection to the original Tobey movies. Like, I feel like those are like the movies that I grew up with in a lot of ways. I remember going to see the first one with my family, going to see the second one with my brother, going to see the third one with my brother and sister in IMAX. We were like, oh, we got to see the third one in IMAX. This is a trilogy we love. And, the third one wound up being what it was. And I remember even at the time being like, yeah, I like the other two better. And I was like 10, able to realize that. But yeah, this is pretty high up. And in terms of, like I said, movies that I want to rewatch, I'm gonna watch this movie dozens of times. I've watched it 3 times already.
You watched it 3 times already. And we have to shout out, who's your friend again who put the spider on the screen?
Dom, yeah. Dom. He played drums on Back to School, Pop Punk Back to School. He's the drummer on that track.
Yeah. Shout out Dom, man. So it's like, that's the other thing too, that I think there might be a difference in how everyone views it. I was older when even the Tobey movies had come out, but there were so many people that I saw just on Twitter who were around your age.
I also suffered through the Andrew movies. Yeah. I finally got to see him be a good Spider-Man. You didn't have to see those. You were just like, this guy's great.
I was like, I remember seeing the reviews like, this is terrible. I'm like, all right, well, we're just going to act like that never happened. That's a Sony Spider-Man. That's not this new MCU.
I will say to people, like, if you really liked Andrew Garfield in this movie as Peter Parker Spider-Man, go watch the first Amazing Spider-Man. I almost called it Ultimate Spider-Man. Go watch the first Amazing Spider-Man. It's very watchable. The second one gets too messy. And Jeff made a great point. He said the main criticism is that there's too many characters in those movies, Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And in this movie, they said, let's take the movies with too many characters and let's combine the characters from them. And they made a good movie out of it. So I do think the first Amazing Spider-Man is worth watching if you are an Andrew Garfield fan. It's not the best, but his performance and Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, they carry it. They make it watchable.
And then the way this movie all ended, and you had said it, you're like, I'm so bummed about the way everything ended, but I'm so excited or intrigued at where they're going to go from here. That's how you know you have a good movie. And like I said, it was a sad movie and you're bummed, but I almost like the next day, and it could have just maybe I had some other shit going on in my life. I don't know. But I had like a post sports win glow about me. Like after your team wins a big game, like I felt a little more energetic. I was like happy. That's how I know they like nailed this movie, because there's so many times you go to the movies and you're like, man, they fucking blew that one.
I know.
The
rumors are that's what we're going to be saying about the new Matrix. I'm sad. Oh,
really? God,
there's really bad stuff online about that, which I'm hoping, maybe they'll be wrong. I
And then the last, yeah, exactly. We're just fucking Keanu. God damn it. This is the last one here. Got to get my fast food item review,
don't know.
Bob.
Of
If this
course, of course.
movie
I had this
was a
prep too.
fast food item, what would you say it is?
For me, it's a Big Mac. I know that's a big.
Wow.
I know that's a big thing. Saying it's a Big Mac. A Big Mac's a great, great item. A classic. A staple. You did 3 buns. Would it work with 3 buns? Oh, it works with 3 buns, and it's something that I'm not gonna get every time I order McDonald's because it's a lot. It is a lot, but you're going for a lot. You know what it is. The Big Mac sauce adds a little extra in. It's a little Daredevil that you forget about. It's a Big Mac for me, and that's probably the best fast food item that I've said. Now, in my mind, the coup de grace of fast food items is the AM Crunch Wrap from Taco Bell. I know people maybe think that's crazy, but that would be like end game in my mind. So this is
Mhm.
not that, but it's a Big Mac, and Big Macs are the real deal.
Bob hits us with the fucking like the symmetry with the 3 buns. I mean, you fucking nailed 3 Spider-Men. All right, and then like, the fucking secret sauce, like, oh yeah, Daredevil, and like you said, this movie, you want to like dive into it, it's gonna be a doozy, but you'll
All
get
that
your
lettuce, it
money's
works
worth.
with all that lettuce. Yeah, it works with all that lettuce.
On a sesame seed bun. Mine is it goes in a little bit of a different direction. It's not an actual food, but it's McDonald's Monopoly. I know what I'm getting when I get it.
Oh,
It's not going to be deep, but you know what? I'm going to fucking look forward to it. I'm going to have fun the entire time. I know I'm not going to be walking away a fucking millionaire. I'm not walking away with fucking deep life questions about what Thanos did was right, even though he probably was, and all that kind of stuff, or waiting for Endgame to wrap it all up. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go. Maybe I get a free fries out of it. Maybe I get Boardwalk, and I just get to just like dream that dream. And it's like the dream of the Spider-Mans working together. It fucking worked perfectly. I loved it. And all in all, I mean, we're happy. I mean,
it's a great
shout out,
time.
I
Yeah.
want to talk to us like years ago when this was first being whispered about and be like, guys, they're gonna nail it here.
I
They're gonna
would
nail
like
it.
to go back. I may do this. Go back and listen to our Far From Home recap and just see because I remember saying after that one, like, I want to see the next one so bad. It's such a good cliffhanger. Like, I would love to see what we were saying, us two idiots.
We're probably throwing people on the. We didn't even have the sus list at that point. Shit.
No, no, I don't think we did. Yeah, we definitely didn't. That's it for this podcast, though. We went almost 2 hours. I mean, we said right
Knew it.
before we started recording, we said we might go like 90 minutes on this one. Nope, we blew past that. We talked about Spider-Man for almost the entire length of Spider-Man. And if you've made it this far in the podcast or the YouTube video, thank you for hanging with us. It's been a fun time. We're happy to talk Spider-Man with all of you guys. This is going to be one of the last episodes of the year. So thanks for supporting the channel throughout the year, too. I only made it 9 months ago. We only made it 9 months ago. And Book of Boba Fett, Hawkeye finale, they'll be next. Look out for that.
And hit us with the I got the hashtag Spider-Man game. That's what we're gonna do as the hashtag there. So if you made it all the way this far, and I mean, Bob, you said it. Thank you for fucking running this shit. It's been awesome. It's been great seeing the show grow, and I even more so. Just I don't know about you. It's one of my favorite things. Like our fans are so awesome. They'll just hit and be like, "Hey, man, I love having you guys in the basement," and we love talking with each other and then talking with you guys and the stuff that comes
I
on the
DM'd with a
show.
bunch of people about this, just a bunch of basement listeners, because when you see a movie like this, you want to talk about it so bad, but you can't because of spoiler culture. So I was just DMing with people, just random people about like what we loved, what we didn't like, what we thought was awesome, the things we didn't expect, what we want to come next. It was great.
Yeah, it was great. So, and we're going to try to grow this channel. So, if you can subscribe, thumbs up. I hate when people ask that. They love
I
when they put
know,
the
but
little cool.
it would help, when they
It would
see that
help.
on the numbers, people would be like, damn, my mom's basement's got a lot of listeners. So if
We're
we've made it this far, listen, if you've made it 2 hours into one of these and you're not subscribed, please do us a favor and
we're
subscribe.
talking. We're talking to the YouTube person
It'll
at
cure my
Barstool.
COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Pure Bob's School. That's all he needs is more subscriptions. We're gonna try to hack the algorithm and get our fucking shit up there. But if you do that, and we're gonna try to figure out a way. I don't know how we're gonna do it. We're gonna try to figure out maybe give away a shirt or merch or
Yeah,
something.
we'll do some kind of giveaway.
We're closing in on 10,000 subs. I think we can get there by the new year, which is like less than 2 weeks away. Bob's like, that's a little fucking crazy. Prove me wrong.
I also,
Prove
hey,
Bob wrong,
I have a bunch of toys at the office, like stuff that Hasbro has sent us, unopened, still in the box, some Star Wars shit, some Marvel shit. Next time I go in the office, which may be in a bit because it seems to be fucking quarantine zone right now, I'll go check out some of that. We'll do a giveaway with that stuff.
We're going to do a giveaway. So if you subscribe, all you have to do, if you're subscribed, you're good. If you're not, go subscribe. Take a screenshot if you subscribe to the Basement channel and send it to theclemreport@gmail.com. We're going to put everyone who submits, we're going to put it in a thing, and then we'll figure out, do some giveaways from there. But we're trying to get to 10K. I think we get there by the new year. Bob's he's the negative Peter Parker. He doesn't think it can happen.
Hey, if you expect disappointment, you'll never be disappointed.
That's true. And also one more thing. Shout out Worms28. He left us a 5-star review. So if you're leaving out 5-star reviews on iTunes, we got to shout you out on the show as well. And you leave the little blurb about us. I can see the name. So shout out Worms28.
Hopefully it's the worm from Dune, famous worm this year. All right. Thank you for tuning in to this 2-hour Spider-Man No Way Home recap. Thank you to Clem for joining me. We will talk to you guys later this week, for the Hawkeye finale recap.